Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Political No Brainer podcast. The podcast where we move past winner takes all politics and into real conversation. I'm Jeff Rabinowitz, and this season we're bringing in voices from all sides to challenge assumptions, bridge divides, and build a better understanding of today's biggest issues. I've got, I, oh my God, I've got Kevin with me. And what's the name of your book, Kevin?
Onward at last, the 2024 presidential election edition.
An incredible book that I've been reading. I don't know why I can't remember the name of the book, but tell me what you just told me about the success it's having now.
Yeah, well, it's definitely getting some traction. It just won the Independent Book Publishers Award, a bronze medal, for best nonfiction adult ebook, right? And it's an international award. The Independent Book Publishers Award, the IPPY, is the oldest of the independent book awards and the most established. And so I was elated to win that announcement came out 2 weeks ago, and right off that announcement, it got a feature article in the New York Review. And so, so it is definitely getting some visibility. I'm on the podcast. It's like I'm on the No Brainer, podcast here. I've been hitting the podcast networks and as circuit very hard, and it's been a fun run.
It's been a great book. I have stuff here. I loved it. I've been reading it. Kevin Howard, Onward, and why the hell is my memory? Tell me the name of the book again.
Like onward at last.
Onward at last.
And the
Onward.
reason why I called it Onward at Last is seriously, a lot of people, particularly people I targeted the book to people from the age of 30 to the age of 60. And the reason why that range here in the States is because the people of those ages, which includes us, right, are old enough to remember when things worked so much better when our economy was such that if you did work hard and if you did get educated and get skills and add value, you could achieve the American dream. It was within your reach. You can own a home and save. Hey, Beth, how's it
Hey,
going?
Beth.
Hey,
Good
And
morning.
good morning. I am trying to find a place to go.
and, and so the reason why I call the book Onward at Last is a lot of us through that period of time have felt that things have gotten so hard that we are just stuck. We're just mired in just trying to hold on to the best kind of quality life we can, and it's progressively getting worse, right? And so the whole idea is how do I break out of this morass of what looks like a nation in decline, what actually I guess in many ways is a nation in decline, a society in decline. And I found that because as a person who right there with everyone else, I found myself mired, I found that at the end of the day, the problem is we've been told a bill of goods. We've been told a series of things that convince us that we are different than what we actually are. That has convinced us that we are separate, independent people who the only thing you deserve in life is what you can win through competition, right? And so therefore it pits each of us against each other in order to take care of ourselves and our families. And so we do that. But what that does is produce a society that doesn't trust each other. Because when you're in a Hunger Games, where the difference between someone carrying a sign on the side of the road and someone in the big house with money in the bank is how many wins and losses you have. You don't have time to think about the quality of the life or the implications of the people you defeat. You just have to focus in on sharpening your blades and compete as hard as you can if you have any opportunity to take care of yourself and your family. And so that produces a very toxic society, a society that doesn't trust each other, a society that doesn't trust experts, a society that doesn't trust politicians. Why? Because everyone is in a Hunger Games, right? And so how do we break that? And the key to breaking that is to actually recognize that that's not who we are. We've been encouraged to feel that way. We've been socialized to feel that way, but actually we don't live independently. And we've had this conversation in earlier podcast. We live interdependently. None of us make the food we eat, or the clothes we wear, or the air we breathe, or the water we drink, or the house we live in, or the beds we sleep in, or the cars we drive, and on and on and on. We rely every day on the actions of thousands of people we will never know. And when one of those people screw up, it affects our lives. That's when the brakes don't work, or that's when we get food poisoning. So we live interdependently. And if you know you live and survive interdependently, all those other people matter. But we've been told a bill of goods that they don't matter. And so as they suffer and we sit in the big house, if we're successful, right? We just roll over and go to sleep while they can't feed their families and wonder why our goods and services are declining, the quality of our goods and services. Because the people that we rely on, we're defeating every day. So this is what my book is about. If we can remember who we are and then make our choices based on that we live symbiotically, we rely on each other and the natural environment that sustains us, then we will make different choices. We won't find ourselves here in the current administration, here with the 50 plus one divided nation. We no, because we're one human family, and that's just not pie in the sky idealism. It's literally how we live
Well,
every day.
I love that you say that, but then, and I will say this, it seems like your book is very versed towards supporting Donald Trump's approach. And that's the issue I take, is because when you do live in a world that's interdependent, and that we recognize that. We recognize that back in the Nixon days, that we're going to rein in China. We're going to bring them in. And now we're looking at China as the enemy. They're the capital of cheap labor. They're the issue. Now we've got a president that has waged economic war on the entire world. It's a passive aggressive approach. You're saying we don't want your products, and if your products are allowed in our country, we're either gonna tax them or you're gonna let our products into your country. Okay, so let's take for example some small country that provides lima beans to us. It's a poor country. That's their farming. That's their whole bowl of rice. No pun intended. The lima beans is their whole income. And we're demanding that they allow our cars to be sold in their country. Well, these people don't, when you look at the cars they're driving, they're 50-year-old vehicles held on with glue and ice cream sticks held together with, so we're demanding something that they can't possibly accomplish. So when you talk about an interdependent world, about a globalizing economy, that was where we were at. Now we've got a president that's taking a wrecking ball to all that. Nobody counts. Nobody, except for two countries. Strangely enough, Russia and North Korea were sort of left out of the tariff war. And that's because Trump has a fascination with Putin, and Putin has a fascination with North Korea. So there's this collusion that we're gonna stymie out the world. We're gonna so we're not living in an independent world. When you say this is the issue, do we recognize we're living in an interdependent world? And then you have a president saying this is the issue, we were living in an interdependent world. Where do we go from there?
No, that's it. That I hear what you're saying, and there's some
Good
truth
morning, Charlie.
about. Morning. Hey, Charlie, there's some truth in what you're saying, Coach Drippy, about me come at the end of my book, in my last commentary, written right before the election, the actual election. I had come to the place where if I had a choice between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, that I supported Donald Trump. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But how I got there, I did not support Donald Trump at the beginning of 2024. In fact, I wrote a commentary about what America needed coming into the election, right, at the start of the election. And I was calling for a third party, that we needed an independent president, right? And I laid out the reasons why Donald Trump, based on how he governed in his first term, right, was not the answer, and how Joe Biden or Kamala Harris are also not the answer based on how they governed in their term, right? So I came to this place because this is the choice that the political system gave us. This notion of the lesser of two evils, right? The tragedy of the Democratic Party, the tragedy of Joe Biden, President Biden, and unfortunately Kamala Harris, because she wrapped herself up in his administration, right? is that they actually did the unthinkable. They actually were the more evil than even Donald Trump, because what they were standing for is telling the world that an unnecessary war in Ukraine, that America instigated over a 30-year period. We instigated that war, right? And it's cost over 1 million lives, something that was completely unnecessary. That they framed that war as a fight for freedom and a fight for sovereignty, when the Ukrainian people have never voted or elected a government that supported joining NATO, that was anti-Russian. The only way governments who favor NATO in Ukraine get to power is they did like Zelensky, ran a campaign where he said he was going to enforce the Minsk II agreements, which is a peace treaty with Russia, and he would bring peace with Russia. That's what he got elected to do. And then he flipped the switch at our influence, right? And so that's what I'm saying. So this is the Biden administration and Kamala Harris wrapped themselves up in a profound lie, no different than WMDs in Iraq and stuff like that. And it cost over 1 million. I mean, yes, over 1 million lives and stuff like that, right? And then the alternative was they wrapped themselves up in an ongoing genocide in Gaza, right? And the thing is, they rationalize it in every way. Oh, the Israelis have to defend themselves because they were attacked. You know, the issue of genocide is governed by an international treaty called the Genocide Convention, passed in 1947, ratified by Senator Joe Biden, led by Senator Joe Biden in 1988 in the United States. Over 150 nations have ratified the Genocide Convention. It's 3 pages long. Under the Genocide Convention, only the International Court of Justice has jurisdiction to decide what is genocide. And there's a method by which this is going on. And South Africa brought a case against Israel for genocide. So it was an ongoing case. But the Biden administration acts as if the president of the United States gets to decide, well, if it's my friend, Israel, right, then they're just defending themselves. By the way, in that 3 page Genocide Convention document, there is no self defense for genocide. Okay? There's no such a thing.
Well, hang
Israel
on.
made that argument.
Let's keep it there. Somebody jump in, or because I believe me, I can jump in, but I want somebody to jump in. Charlie, Beth, jump in real quick.
Well, I have a hard time accepting, obviously I think there were some mistakes made in how we dealt with Russia over the last 20 years and kind of pushing NATO harder than we said we would. It was never a threat to Russia's sovereignty in any way, and certainly would not justify just rolling tanks across the border and attempting to decapitate Kyiv, which, fortunately they weren't able to do.
Charlie, that's an insane statement. How could you
Well,
say
well, hang on. Let me say one thing.
forward position
Hang on.
nuclear bombs?
Let me just say this one thing.
The people need to hear the truth. What do you mean it's not a threat to the national security of Russia? Putin told us in 2008, we put nuclear missiles in Poland, we put nuclear missiles in Romania, and we intended to put nuclear missiles in Ukraine. How can it not be? The Russians said to us this would be an existential threat to their national security in 2008 when George W. Bush announced that we were going to expand NATO to include Ukraine. So how do you just say it's no threat to their national security? How did we act when the Soviet Union put nuclear missiles in Cuba? Right? What are you talking about? What history are you drawing on when you say such an outrageous thing? Because you're right. If it's not in their national security, if it doesn't affect their national security, then it is like a naked, aggressive attack, right? But it's not true. Our history proves what you just said is ridiculous. So could you rephrase or help me to understand how it's not in the national
Well, I want
security
to help
interest?
you understand. The alleged antagonization of Putin was the growth of NATO. We do not invite countries to join NATO. Countries ask us to join NATO.
Is
There's
that how
there's
Ukraine? Is that how Ukraine asked
Ukraine
us to
has
join
never
NATO?
been invited, nor are they a part of NATO. That is Zelensky's dream, his dream come true. But we have said no. And mind you, Russia invaded Crimea first, and George Bush did nothing. And Zelensky sat back and allowed them to annex Crimea with not only an annexation, an official
You're talking about
document,
2014, Coach, right?
right? Or
It's,
it might have been Obama, but
yeah,
um,
yeah, but
but we
hold it.
sat back and we allowed this brutal annexation of a portion of Ukraine. And not only did we allow it, we allowed him to build a $3.5 billion bridge, which is about to collapse any day now. But anyway,
But Coach Trippy, hold on for a second. See, this was that you're in the Charlie category. Okay.
I
If
am
you
very
want to
much in the
say,
Charlie
if you want to
corner
say, wait, if you want
and
to
probably the
say
Beth
that
corner.
the attack against Crimea in 2014, you have to what led to that? It was a Tuesday and Putin woke up and decided to take Crimea. It was the fact that the United States paid for the violent overthrow of a NATO neutral, democratically elected government in Ukraine in February 2014. That we ripped out some notion of liberty. This was
But under
my God.
any leadership, Ukraine was always considered a sovereign nation. Under
Yes,
any
are sovereign.
leadership, under
Yes,
any
yes.
presidency,
But
Zelensky or the guy
they
before.
are a democracy. They had a democratically elected government who was working with Russia, right? Who was NATO neutral. Their constitution was said that they were going to be neutral to NATO and stuff like that. And we paid for the violent overthrow of that government, installed an anti-Russian, pro-NATO government that I mean, my gosh, that Obama's Assistant Secretary of State, Victoria Nuland, got caught on tape predicting the government we were going to put in. It was in response to that government got put in, and then they started killing ethnically Russian Ukrainians. That Russia attacked Ukraine in 2014 and took Crimea. Okay, you're right. They did do this, but why? After 15,000 ethnically Russian Ukrainians and stuff like that, yes, this is why they intervened, because we installed a government in Ukraine. Ukrainian sovereignty. What's that have to do with the fact that we are overthrowing democratically elected governments? So come on, this story is so twisted. Go back to the history. Check Jeffrey Sachs and what he said at the European Parliament in February of this year, and so that laying out the history. This is our fault. We created this problem entirely, and the Biden administration, who executed the last stage of this plan, wrapped themselves up. Kamala Harris wrapped herself up in joy and decency, right, in the face of a program that killed 1 million Ukraine people in the war in Ukraine for something we started, and then paid for a genocide, gave diplomatic cover for a genocide in Israel, and then they say that's decency, that's joy. Right? No wonder they lost. Who could they did the
Wait,
impossible?
who?
They made Donald Trump the lesser of two evils. Okay.
Well,
And so,
I don't think Donald Trump's position on Ukraine got him elected. But Beth, what do
no,
you
of course
think?
it didn't. No, of course it didn't. But it was a rejection of Kamala Harris, who represented Biden, and she refused to separate herself from Biden. So she became the incumbent, and 70% of the country said the country was going in the wrong direction. Though that's a wrong track election. The incumbent always loses.
Jump in, Beth.
No, thanks. I'll hear you guys keep going. I just got here. I just
So, okay, I'm going to go on to another subject. I'm going to go on to the bro show falling apart, because Ukraine is going to be one where we're going to have to agree to disagree. I'm going to say they were always considered a sovereign nation. Putin has invaded a sovereign nation, just as Iraq invaded a sovereign nation in Kuwait, and
Was
we
Cuba
came to their
sovereign?
rescue.
Was
Huh?
Cuba sovereign in the Cuban Missile Crisis? Were they sovereign?
You're talking about 40 years. The logistic powers of the Cuban
In the
Missile
history of a
Crisis.
nation, 40 years is
You
nothing.
can put missiles in Poland right at the border on the heels of Russia, and not compare the logistics when Cuba was at the foot of our Florida. And then missiles
But
didn't fly so far, and then
yeah,
missiles weren't so accurate. And
but
then
the
so you
reason,
had a real
but
issue. when you
But the
called
reason
it, when
why
you're trying
Cuba
to
did
hang
it,
on, when you're trying to equate the issue similar in scope to a Cuban Missile Crisis 50 years ago, than to an American nuclear missile in Poland, we can fire a missile from California and hit Russia now. So logistically, the missiles where their
yes, but it
position
takes a
mean
lot
nothing.
longer to get there, and right, and it makes it easier to defend against. What I'm trying to say to you here is that if sovereignty is all that you say it is, and Cuba invited the Soviet Union to bring nuclear missiles on their border in their country, why? Because the United States tried to overthrow their government in the Bay of Pigs. Remember, right? Okay, so to defend themselves and their national security, their sovereign government invited, signed a nuclear defense treaty with the Soviet Union. And what did we do? Did we care about their sovereignty? No, because it violated our national security, and we didn't. Now flip the switch,
Everything
right?
about
Because Russia has said it is not for us to say what's in their national security issue. Russia has said publicly in 2008 that if you add Ukraine to NATO, it will be an existential threat to their national security
but
that
they
they would go to
haven't been
nuclear
added.
war.
They've never been invited. It's never even
What do
been
you mean?
considered.
In
It's
December
never been
2020,
considered.
that is such nonsense. In December 2021, with the Russian military on the Ukrainian border, Putin contacted the NATO Secretary General and said, I want a conference on the security question in Ukraine, right? And we
It takes
responded,
numerous
and we
nations.
responded. No, we responded that NATO expansion is not the business of the Soviet Union. Even if it's in there,
It is
it
not the
violates.
business of the
That's
Soviet
an
Union.
insane statement.
The
So, so,
Soviet Union
so,
can't
so,
even logistically defend
so,
themselves without us, with
hey,
us as our only. If we
what do
stand
you mean?
alone, if
It's
Russia cannot defeat Ukraine in 3+ years, it can
no.
certainly not have
They're not
any
just fighting
consideration of
Ukraine,
defeating the
coach.
U.S. in
Coach,
300 years.
Coach, they're fighting $200 billion worth of investment from NATO
The greatest military investment the
and
U.S. has ever made.
wait up, and they're defeating that. They have effective. The only thing they didn't
They
defeat
haven't
from
defeated
NATO.
their
they-
Ukraine, a
yes,
tiny nation with one tenth
no.
the
It's
people,
not.
is wiping their ass
Look,
with dead
look.
Russian generals
You're
every
talking
day
about
of
a
the last three
tiny
years.
nation. You're talking about a tiny nation. They're not a tiny nation. They used to be the breadbasket of much of Europe and Africa and stuff like that.
The
And I can tell you this,
breadbasket.
they are not a tiny nation. This is not,
They're an
Lithuania.
agricultural
This is,
nation.
but your words.
And
Only
Russia
thing,
has demanded that they take control
look,
of that
the
avenue
only
that gets the
thing
grain out to
Russia
the
has
world.
demanded was that Ukraine stay neutral, and we are the ones who
It's not
announced
for Putin to decide
that.
where Ukraine stands. It's a
Yes,
sovereign
it
nation. If they
is.
want to
Wait,
side
wait,
with
wait.
if
See,
they want
this
to
is
side with
why,
the US, it's
Coach.
their
This is
decision.
why history matters. What are you
This is
talking about?
catering to
No,
Putin. When does
no.
Putin make our decisions? You know
Hold it,
when? When
hold it.
Trump's president. That's
I
the
mean,
only
see,
time in America Putin makes our
Coach,
decisions. The
your head
only
is gonna
time.
your head is gonna explode from hypocrisy. It is the United States that established the Monroe Doctrine in like 1840, to where we claimed the entire Western Hemisphere. Any attack on any country in the entire Western Hemisphere is an attack on the United States. Do you know why? Because we love these countries and we want to make sure they're safe? Hell no, because we own those countries, right? Tell me this. But
You
stop this
can't, you're going
nonsense.
back on an
And
1840
no,
doctrine.
I'm just trying to say,
Christian conservatives
you,
quoting the
no, no,
Constitution as some
look,
biblical doctrine.
look,
It's
you try to
not. It's a
trivial,
it's a
you try to
doctrine that needs amended.
you try to trivialize the history, the how we got here. The reason why Eastern Europe needed to stay NATO neutral. This was the basis of the agreement between Gorbachev and H.W. Bush, right, for the Soviet Union to stand down. The reason why the Warsaw Pact existed is because all the major conflicts between Russia and Europe were initiated by Western European countries. The Napoleonic Wars, right? World War I, World War II. In World War II, almost 20 up to 27 million Soviet citizens died at the hands of the Germans. Okay, so when they helped us win the war, primarily taking the teeth of the battle, right? Their condition for the peace is that Eastern Europe was a security buffer. It's a security buffer. And so, so James Baker, the Secretary of State, gave Gorbachev a private assurance, the same private assurance we gave the Kennedy administration gave in the Cuban Missile Crisis, to say we would not expand NATO east of Germany.
Well, here's the thing. James Baker,
In
Gorbachev,
exchange for that, the Soviet Union supported the reunification of Germany. They relinquished control of all these countries who they were using as a security buffer.
Germany demanded the unification of their country. The Soviet Union no one has any interest in being a part of the Warsaw Pact. When you look at the drunken sloths that come across the border into Ukraine, you realize why they have no effectiveness as far as recruiting new countries.
They lost up to 27 million people from another Western European attack on Russia, on the Soviet Union, okay? The reason why all the Warsaw Pact countries could have had the benefit that Austria had. Check the history of what happened to Austria in 1955. It was the same deal like Ukraine today, which is basically if Austria agreed to go neutral and not join NATO, the Red Army would leave Austria. And this is what happened in 1955. Austria has been NATO neutral all this time and have been free. Right, and no one interfered with them.
Hang on, I got to ask something. Can we move on to another topic? Because I can't win this one with you. Let's move on to another topic. Because I can't.
The history is a bit selective.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, your history is a bit selective in your memory of it.
Well, please go right ahead, Beth. No. Don't just say. See, it's like saying if you want to say something like that. My history is selective. I'm not trying to be selective.
Well, during that, it wasn't.
I'm not manipulating the history to give an impression that's not true. So what do you mean by that, Beth? Because this is a characterization.
Well, when you say that they didn't want to join these countries, why are they wanting to join now?
There has not been one sovereign expression from the Ukrainian people to join NATO. Not one election. They have a democracy. Not one election. Even Zelensky was not elected to join NATO. Zelensky ran a campaign. Google it. He ran a campaign.
They have requested to join NATO.
No.
Ukraine requested to join NATO. And the request has been declined. No. Zelensky requested to join NATO, but that's not the basis by which he ran. He ran enforcing the Minsk II agreements, which is a peace treaty with Russia. He ran to bring peace to Russia. There has not been one democratic election in the Ukraine to support a leader to join NATO. The only way Hang on, let's let Charlie jump in. Hang on, let's Charlie.
Just for clarification, so what you're saying is that you believe that the justification for Russia invading Ukraine was that they were a threat to their own sovereignty. And I'm asking this as a legitimate question. I'm not trying to be facetious here. I'm trying to understand where you're coming from.
The placement
the justification. Are you justifying the invasion? And are you basing that justification on the fact that there was an actual legitimate physical threat?
Existential threat.
Yes. Okay. And so let me answer that question. That's a great question, Charlie. Okay. It was the fact that instead of allowing the Ukrainians to decide the same government they keep on voting. They had elections in the late 90s. They had elections in the early 2000s. They had elections. Well, okay. Instead of allowing that to occur, and if the Ukrainians wanted to do something different and wanted to negotiate a different deal, that would have been one thing, right? That didn't happen. We interfered in the sovereign expression, the sovereign democracy of Ukraine by financing the violent overthrow of a democratically elected government that represented the sovereignty of Ukraine.
So your position is that the Russian invasion was in fact.
Let me just answer your question, Charlie.
I'm asking for clarification. Hold on.
Yeah. Okay. What I'm saying is, it's not a justification. What happened here is that we the United States paid, and they know we paid because they caught it on tape, paid for the violent overthrow of a government and installed
That's what
a
the
Ukrainian
question. That's the
and
question.
installed. Well, can I
That's the
finish,
question.
please? Let me finish. I'll give you a clarification that the government we installed then wanted to join NATO. That government could not have been elected by the Ukrainian people. They would have lost. That's why you had to have a violent overthrow, right? Okay, so we install that government, and that government proceeds in a country that is deeply Russian also to ban Russian culture and start killing ethnically Russian Ukrainians. They banned the language. They banned the religion. They banned the, no, this is what they did. Okay, so this is when Russia intervened, right? And not only did we engage in that activity, but we started building secret military bases in Ukraine with NATO equipment and all that other stuff. This was on the front page of the New York Times last year. What I mean,
But
really,
here's the thing: you haven't
what would
seen
we
a
do?
major
What would we
Ukrainian
do if
uprising
China did
against
this?
Zelensky.
What would we do if China did this in Mexico? What would we do if China did this in Canada? We are talking about the 51st state in Canada. Suppose Canada says, you know what? It might be in our national security interest to sign a nuclear defense treaty with China, right? What would we do? What did we do in Cuba? This is what I'm saying. The hypocrisy is mind-boggling. It is in their national security interest if a hostile NATO moves all the way across Europe, consumes the entire Warsaw Pact, consumes three provinces of the former Soviet Union. All that is in NATO, right? Okay. Why? Who is pressing who? And then we move nuclear missiles so that they're five minutes away from Moscow. 5 minutes.
But
This
here's
is
my
insane.
point, unless Charlie has another point, the people of Ukraine are not outraged at Zelensky's
Let me just say
leadership.
something. I wasn't
You
trying
Let
kidding
to.
Charlie
me?
make his point. Hang
I
on, let
wasn't
Charlie.
trying.
Charlie, jump in.
I'm not trying to make a point. I was asking a question. You pretty much answered and kept going on. I was just saying, do you believe that the invasion, as it rolled out, was justified? You do. Okay, that's fine. That was the question I
Absolutely.
was asking.
Absolutely, it was justified. If defending, you know what? As a veteran, as a veteran, my greatest shame for my own country is that the wars that we have fought for the last 30 years, none of them involved our national security interests. That is supposed to be the use of your military force when your national security interest is really at risk.
We
And
don't
when you're
have a
talking,
single soldier on Ukrainian soil. We are not fighting a Ukrainian war as we
oh,
did the war in
it's a,
Kuwait and Iraq.
it's called a surrogate war where they're using our satellite technology, they're using our intelligence, they're using our logistics. What are you talking about, Coach? What do you
We don't
mean?
have a single soldier on
We don't have
Ukrainian
to have. We're
soil. You're
training
saying
them.
fighting a
We're giving
war.
them the
It's
intelligence. We're giving them.
R&D. It's
We're giving
R&D.
no, no,
We know what
no,
our equipment's
no, no,
capable
no,
of
no,
better
no.
than ever
It is
now.
they could not function without what we are offering them, the intelligence, the
Absolutely.
logistics.
Absolutely.
So the fact that there's no soldier, that's called a surrogate war. We did this to the Soviet Union in the Afghan war in the 1980s. We didn't have any American soldiers. We trained the Mujahideen, right? We trained Bin Laden, right? We gave them the weapons, and they defeated the Soviet military in Afghanistan, right? We didn't have anyone on the ground, but they couldn't have done it without us. So I
No,
don't understand what
absolutely
what are
not.
you
They couldn't
talking
have done it
about?
without. Absolutely. I'm agreeing with you. They couldn't do it without
So
us.
then
I 100%.
what's the point of no American soldiers on the ground? Because no one is
There's no
claiming that.
American soldiers on the ground.
Why are you
When we
saying that? Why
reacted
is that
when
significant?
we reacted to Iraq invading Kuwait, we put 600,000 American lives at risk on a territory they have never experienced before, in a weather they've never experienced before. They even needed new boots developed for their feet to walk on the soil on the sand they were walking on. Our troops were at a miserable compromise. They were in grave danger when we put those 500,000 troops on the ground. We have not, and the Iraq War proved to be one thing: R&D, research and development. We've done the same thing in Ukraine. We are
Yeah.
literally in a position
How many
now.
people died?
Let me
How
tell
many
you,
people died
if
for that R&D?
okay, let me tell you. Okay,
How
hang
many
on.
people did we kill for
Hang
that
on. Let me
R&D?
finish. Hang on. Let me finish. There's a simple saying: a military dictator will commit murder every day, but he will never commit suicide. Putin has been slaughtered at the hands of the Ukrainians at our help. But the fact of the matter is, the normal reaction, the biggest concern we have, when is Putin going to fire a nuclear missile? He won't, because he knows if he does, he's done. So we have proven to the world we are the most effective military in the world without moving a single soldier onto Ukraine soil. If that is not a huge accomplishment to a military personnel, a former military personnel, I don't know what is. So if you're saying the
Coach,
politics of it all, is you Zelensky campaigned on the premise that he would not, that he wanted to be a part of this agreement that would choose that Ukraine never be a part of NATO, and he lied to his people. Let's talk about Trump, who said he knows nothing about Agenda 2025, and he's executing it chapter and verse the first day he took office. Let's talk about politics in general. It's what it is. It is what it is. We are not
but
here to defend
coach, hold it
Putin's.
now.
We are
You
not
see,
here to defend Putin's concerns.
coach,
We are here to
coach.
defend America. And we've done a very good job of that, using Ukraine as a crash dummy. And you know what? Ukraine is winning the
Coach,
war.
we're here. You know what? We're here. Hopefully, we're here to tell the truth. The
We're
truth.
hearing the truth, and
No,
we're
no, no,
saying, you know
no,
what? We've been
no, no,
lied
no.
to over and
Okay,
over again, and we're
okay.
okay
So
with
if we're
it.
talking the truth, okay, how could you say that the war in Ukraine, from a research and development and a NATO military perspective, has been a success? They
You can
are
take, for
about to
example,
no.
drones.
Are
Drones
you
are better
no, no?
off
Can I
operating with
finish?
fiber optics than they are with lasers. I mean,
They are about to lose. Are you kidding me? They are about to
only
lose.
because
Look
Trump
at
is pulling their
what do
only
you
because
mean? That is
henceforth
so
stopped
ridiculous.
any
No, no, no.
intelligence sharing for
That
2 weeks,
is so
Kevin, you
putting
can't
ridiculous.
just.
putting
All of last year, Ukraine was getting crushed. What do you mean? It's not
when
because Trump came
henceforth
along. No,
stopped sharing
look, Trump.
intelligence was the
No,
only
no, no.
time
Hold on,
they're
no.
moving inches, and
That's no, no,
they're
no.
using
That
humans. They're using their own
I
soldiers
cannot
to be
express
shot
this
dead to
enough,
get through the
Coach.
lines.
The turn in the war in Ukraine was in 2023. It has been one series of catastrophic losses since the summer offensive in
Since last
2023.
week, when
No, no, no,
Ukrainian drones took out 40 Russian
it
bombers.
has not been since Trump took office in January 20th of 2025. It's been since summer of 2023. The NATO effort in Ukraine is a catastrophic failure. I don't understand what you are talking about. Ask any geopolitical analyst. You can't find one credible military analyst who's analyzing the war in Ukraine that says that any of the research and development systems that we used in Ukraine have been effective against Russia. None. None. They have essentially
We would
they
have to
ceased.
get a military analyst on. I can probably get somebody on this show.
All the credible ones, all the
Oh, if I
international
get
ones.
somebody on the show, they won't be credible because they won't
No,
see it
no,
your
no,
way.
no, no. I want to hear the one because again, they're gonna have to show us. Look at the map.
Let's
Look
go
where the
on to
battle
another
lines
topic.
are.
We're gonna
They're
continue
talking.
this topic with a military analyst and everybody here. We're gonna have 5 squares the next time we
There
continue
is
this.
many.
I will
Look,
find one.
ch
I
ch ch
promise you.
okay. I
Now
recommend
let's
anyone
talk
to
about.
go listen to Alexander McCoris on YouTube. There's many. There's many. But or if you want an American, right? If you want an
Maybe you can find me
American,
one. You
right?
can find me one.
They're all out
But hang on,
there.
I want to
They're
go on
all
to. I don't want to consume this with Ukraine. I
okay.
want to go on to the bro show coming to an end, and
Yes.
now I want to talk about Trump and Elon Musk feuding it out. Elon Musk says the big beautiful bill is a big giant waste of money. This is Trump's signature legislation. This is his $4.2 billion cut out everything and do the Robin Hood thing in reverse, take everything from the poor and give it to the rich. How do we feel about that, guys? About the bill, about the feud, about the
Honestly, I really do believe now that Musk's behavior and actions during, let's say when he first started really getting involved in the campaign, were, from my perspective, and especially seeing what we've seen in the last few weeks, a lot of that was driven by the drug use, and I really believe that. I feel like, you know, if anyone who's used or known or been around people on like psychedelic drugs like that, You can see a kind of a twin personality working there with him. I feel like now, like his reactions in the last few days, since he's obviously feels like he's trying to back out of this fight he's got into with Trump, knowing that I think that he knows he's going to come at the losing end of that. It does seem like a lot of what he was doing, that odd behavior, seems most easily explained by drug use, combination drug use, ketamine and psychedelic mushrooms and ecstasy and benzodiazepines. I mean, that's a fascinating mix. And I keep going back to that scene in the Oval Office. I think it was the day he got the key, where he does that thing with his neck where he's kind of out there. It's like a wave of the narcotics just hit him, and he's kind of embracing into that. I find that, that's I think it's a big part of it, of his behavior. I don't think he's criminalized.
Beth?
Beth?
I think we've learned from past presidents that nobody walks away from being partners with Trump or being buddy with Trump and win. Nobody. I mean, didn't we call this in the beginning? Like Trump is, or Elon is not going to benefit from this partnership with Trump. And now we're finding that he's not. And I think Elon is now learning that he's not as well. I think I'm hoping that Elon will throw more out for us, but we'll have to wait and see. He's got a lot on the line.
Well men, really, for different reasons. Because Trump clearly, intellectually is diminished. Doing things that are just, and again, they'll explain it away as joking and everything, but like even something as silly as the reposting of the Biden executed and he's a clone now and a robot and whatever, that's not the choice of a well man.
Well, I feel like he does that. Maybe he knew that the relationship with Elon was going south, and he always throws out some crazy nonsense around times when things are about to get deep.
But he still is the president of the United States. And
yes. Oh, totally.
It's amazing to me that we've gotten so used to it with him that it no longer shocks the system, but it really should, because the word of the president is still the word of the president. Has, unlike anyone else on this planet, has the ability to roil markets and to change, create social unrest just with a word. And that's still true, but we've just accepted the fact that he can just do these crazy things that any other president, certainly Joe Biden, but any other president, we'd be questioning his fitness. But we don't do that anymore.
The thing is, to that point, Charlie, is that most serious leaders around the world, like Xi and Putin, NATO allies, our European allies, they already see what Trump is. Right. They in other words, you can't understand Trump if you take him literally. I'm sorry. So as much as you want to say every word of the president counts, right? It makes a difference if you're talking about a traditional politician or you're talking about Donald Trump, who's a marketing guy. Okay. I'm not rationalizing it, but he's not going to act like a politician. He doesn't act like a politician. He's never acted like a politician. Okay. So with that in mind, back to the thing.
The bro show, the bromance.
Bromance. I don't think the funny thing about, and this is hubris on Elon Musk's part. He felt that, okay, he understood that Trump was elected to dismantle the geopolitical and geoeconomic policies of neoliberalism and neoconservatism. He thought that by joining that team, that he could carve out protection for himself in the same way that all the billionaires, once Trump got elected, then circled around and lined up behind him. But all of them are going to find out what Elon now knows all too well, which is that he's coming for them. That he's not. This is the billionaire who none of them accepted as one of their own, who all of them consider a carnival barker. Right? They all have shown him contempt over his life, right? And the reason why is because he has branded himself as the face of the billionaire class. And they don't want him as the face because he's a joke from their perspective. So he is motivated to dismantle the billionaires And that's what his tariff regime is doing. That's what his big, beautiful bill is doing. It's putting into place a wrecking ball on how they have absolutely built the US Treasury for trillions of dollars over the last 30 years, right? And so, of
Have you read
course,
the bill?
huh,
Have you read the bill?
Have you seen the bill?
have I read the bill? Of
Yeah.
course. Of course.
So
And no, no, no. My point, hold on, time out. My point is not, of course I read the bill. And wow, I mean, I don't know why you would ask me that question like that.
because you
I am
said that
not,
it's going after the millionaires and billionaires like
no,
Musk.
he is going after, Trump is going after the manner, the infrastructure of the neoliberal neoconservative project, which ran the country across both parties since 1992, right?
Well, how
And
so though? I have to ask.
the big
Well,
beautiful
hang
bill
on.
is a
Can I
part.
ask how?
Yeah, in the bill, what is in the
Well,
bill that
okay, what I'm no,
specifically?
okay, no, no, no.
Well,
First and
let's
foremost,
just take the
no,
generalization and let's
okay,
take a
okay.
4.2 trillion.
What I'm
Hang on. Let me ask the question.
the question
Let's
on the
take
table. You know what?
I have an
Stop,
ex
stop. No, no, Cole, stop. The question on the table was the bromance, and I'm speaking to that. So, Beth, slow your roll. We can get into the bill. I'm just trying to
I just
say
asked what in the
I
bill.
was trying to say that, are we
That's what I'm
talking about the
asking too.
bromance or not? Or we,
We
wait,
are,
I
but
mean,
I'm trying to
I'm not
understand.
afraid to
Your
ask what the
statement
bill,
was,
but
your statement,
We ventured off the bromance. We
your
ventured off
statement
the emotional
was,
part of it, and we're on to
I
the
am
this is
actual
trying to show
exactly what this
semantics
you.
bill
of the
is doing.
Okay,
bill.
my basic point is I can't wait to hear you all thoughts, and I'll contribute my thoughts on details of the bill. But at
Okay.
10,000 feet, the fight between Elon Musk is not on the details of the bill, right? Or, the
You
removal of
brought up the bill. You brought up the bill.
no, I'm trying to say that the bill is an expression of an overall intent that Elon Musk knew. Elon Musk just thought he could carve himself out. He knew that Trump was coming to dismantle the way the globalization was
See,
coming to
I
dismantle
have to interrupt for one
America's
second because
hegemony.
this is an important detail. You said Elon Musk had the intention and the understanding that he could carve himself out of the bill. And
He
I'm
was
just going to
carved
make
out.
this one
Out
point.
of the not the
Elon
bill.
Musk
No, 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 no,
acknowledged
not the
all
bill.
along. Hang on,
Not
hang
the
on.
bill,
We're
coach.
talking
I'm
about,
saying
hang on.
out
I'm
of the
just talking
he could
about
protect
Elon.
himself.
I'm okay. Let me just talk about Elon protecting himself slash carving himself out of the bill.
Not the
Initially,
bill of the whole regime.
initially he
Doge,
acknowledged
the whole 9 yards.
Initially, he acknowledged the one thing that may have been important to him was the government subsidies for electric vehicles that came from Biden. And
Yeah,
Trump said this is on the chopping block. So, as
yeah.
far as carving himself out of any effect of this particular bill, because we have to call it just that, a one big, beautiful bill, it is a bill that encompasses a lot of things. But for
Yes.
Elon Musk to go into this with the intention of carving himself out, initially acknowledging that it's an unavoidable that this one big tax break will be taken from him, I don't understand the logic of that statement. He
No,
knew
he knew. That's
his
what I agree
argument
with
is
you.
his
No,
argument now
no.
is hang on, his argument, the argument that caused the demise of the bromance is that the bill is going to skyrocket the deficit by, according to the CBO, a bipartisan part of
Do
government,
you think
according to the
Elon cares
congressional
about the
budget
deficit?
office, Elon Musk is only concerned about the deficit. He lives in a box house. All he
Yeah.
cares about is money allocation, and he doesn't allocate any. We're at a point in time now. We're at a point in time now. It's called budget, zero budget or something. I forget what they call it. Where every year, if a company takes on this zero budget policy, every year, every department has to justify every expense. If they can't formally justify every expense, the expense gets cut permanently. Ergo, the saying, cutbacks don't come back. This is how the government is operating. Initially, the justification for all these cutbacks, taking everything we know to be true, all the championing of the vulnerable we know to be true, cutting it out. Initially, the justification was DEI. If it has anything to do with diversity, equality, or inclusiveness, it has to be cut. It's got to be bad. So then came the logic, we're going to cut, cut, cut. That's what Elon Musk signed on for. Cut everything. Throw the poor to the wolves. Let them starve like they do in China and Russia.
I don't
And
believe
then
that for a
now,
minute. I
now,
don't
oh,
believe that for a minute. Look, it was about efficiency. It was about removing the waste. It
efficiency.
was about,
The
excuse me, it was
efficiency
about,
was $2 trillion
it was
in
about,
savings, which was
no,
stymied down to $1 trillion a week into
it was,
office, which
it was
ultimately turned into $160 billion, according to their own acknowledgement. And now Trump just submitted his first bill to Congress, which is $9.1 billion in savings. So we went from $2 trillion to $9.1 billion in official savings, and we're calling that efficient.
what I'm saying here is it wasn't about balancing a budget either, because you could balance a budget by raising taxes, raising revenues, or whatever. It was about cutting the waste and the inefficiency and restoring accountability to where you could actually have a successful audit. We have trillions of dollars of spending that is not subject to, well, it's subject to audit, but can't pass an audit, right? So this is the efficiency he's talking about. Okay, where I agree with you is how naive for him to, because that's what the spat is. It's ridiculous. He knew what Trump was intending to do. The hubris is he thought, but because he would participate and at Doge, right, that he could protect his interests. And he's finding that Trump is hell bent on not protecting his interests. This is what this is. This is what happens. So Elon has realized that there's gambling going on in this casino, that Trump is coming after him. And all the billionaires are going to realize that if they don't realize it now, right? This is not about coddling up to the billionaires, which I've heard you guys comment about that before. The billionaires are lining up behind Trump because now he has the power and they're hoping to mitigate the damage to themselves.
Well, he's
Right.
also promising that the $4.1 trillion cuts or a budget or a big, beautiful bill will return to them $1 trillion in tax cuts.
Which is a
Because it's
great
not going to
marketing.
come. If
It's
you
a
go
great
by
marketing.
precedent, the
It's a
first
great
Trump tax
marketing
cut went all
statement.
to the rich in corporate America.
Coach, you play this game all the time. You quote him as if it's just regular language. It's marketing language. Turn on your TV, turn on any commercial, and what do you hear? The best, the most effective. Yeah, that's how marketing people talk, and that's how he talks. I'm gonna end
But
this.
it's
I'm gonna end the
okay.
war in
It's
Ukraine
okay,
one
right?
day. And no, it's not. No, the idea
Because
is
when
when you
Obama
know
said you don't have to switch
when you
doctors,
when
and
you
people
know
had to
when
switch doctors, the
no,
shitstorm hit the
Obama wasn't
fan,
talking.
boy.
No, Obama wasn't talking marketing. That's not how he
He was
talks.
just
That he
Obama
Obama
being
is a politician.
Professor Obama. He was
This
bad.
is
He was
this no this
intellectual.
no this look. Obama is a politician. When he talks, he intends to be conveying the truth, right? When Trump talks, he is talk. This is a marketing line designed to go. I mean, everything is the best ever. I mean, you hear the language. It's a beautiful bill. Listen to the language. It's a marketing thing, right? That's not and lots of bills that we've had. We don't the big beautiful. This is how he talks. So you can't just say he said he was going to do this.
It's
I'm
just,
not
I don't
giving.
understand how you can justify his bullshit. And
It's
that's what you're
not
doing. That's why
justifying his
Charlie just
bullshit.
left.
And then,
He's a bullshitter. He's
and
been a bullshitter. The only difference now between the last
Rogan
time
said
when he was
that.
a businessman, he had to bullshit 12 people in a conference
Coach
room. As
Trippy,
president, you got to
Coach,
bullshit the world. And we all
Coach
see
Trippy,
it.
Joe Rogan said that to his face, and 80 million people
He didn't
watched it.
join my
He,
podcast, or I'd say
yeah,
it to his
no, yeah,
face.
no. My point is that exactly right? And most serious people don't take everything he says seriously. But you want to, yeah, that's what the media did the first time, and they're doing it again. Clickbait, right? All you want to do is take the obvious, ridiculous things he says and then hold him to account. Well, you didn't end the war in a day, or you didn't do that. None of it is going to be done like that.
I
That's the way the
take what
world
he says
works.
serious, very serious. Let me tell you why.
Okay,
Let me give you a real
I
life
take
example. I volunteer at the State of Hope. It's basically a repurposed old hotel that houses homeless veterans.
yeah,
These homeless
yeah,
veterans live in a tiny room that looks like It looks like I wouldn't let my pet cockroaches live there.
Yeah, it's
And
all.
that's all they have. That's all they have. They
Mhm.
wake up in the morning, they come down to some free donated breakfast, some grocery store send over pastries. We've campaigned to all the restaurants in the area that this snack food doesn't really mitigate the effects of their medication. We need real food. Trump's
Mhm.
promise was he was going to help homeless veterans. That's all. I'm not going to go big on his soapbox. I took it literally. He seemed like the kind of guy that was going to get some money across to homeless veterans. There's an
Let's see if he
issue,
does it.
and he doesn't. There's not a dime. There's no difference in the money coming in before Trump as the money coming in now. These are very serious allegations. These aren't just let Trump be Trump.
No, I'm not saying
Let Trippy be Trippy. I didn't promise anything running for president. I can be trippy all I want. All I do is raise awareness. I didn't raise any money. I didn't raise $1.5 billion. I didn't cannibalize the nation's ability to donate to important charities like St. Jude's Children's Hospital to fund my bullshit campaign. So when the bullshit turns out to be all bullshit, it's kind of frustrating to those who don't
it's not
really
all
like
bullshit. See,
bullshit.
that's what I'm trying to say. I mean, a lot of it is bullshit. You're right. A lot of it is smoke and mirrors. A lot of it, he never intended to do it. A lot of it, he just made promises,
He
like a
said he knew
lot of
nothing about
politicians.
Project
No,
2025.
no,
They're
no,
executing it
no.
chapter and verse
Look,
to the point where Stephen Miller has just launched a lawsuit against the Supreme Court saying Chief Justice John Roberts has no right to monitor his own budget, to regulate, to use his own budget. We, the president, have the right to. Now they're saying that the
this is
president
the
has the
that's
right to allocate the funds that the Supreme Court uses to fund their cases. So if the president has that right, if we literally if we literally no longer
I don't think that's going to win. I don't no, I don't think that's
it's an
this that's
argument that they're
look, no,
presenting, and you're saying it's
listen.
all bullshit. It's all
No,
smoke and mirrors. It's
no,
Okay, real
no,
okay.
quick.
no,
We just
no,
dial
no,
this
no,
back
no.
real quickly.
I
Just
did
Yes,
I did
let's
not
dial
say
it
let's
back.
just
Charlie,
I
jump
did
in,
let's
I
please.
did
just
not wait, can
Charlie,
I respond
let's.
to what you can
pull
I
back a
respond to what you
little.
say before you push it to Charlie? Can I respond to what you say?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
All I'm saying is no, I'm not saying everything he's saying is bullshit. I'm saying there are threads of reality in what he's doing that you
I'm coming to
cannot
the
just
conclusion everything he said is bullshit. I do
you cannot
appreciate
no,
your response and your defense of him, but I'm coming to the conclusion everything
wow.
he presented is bullshit.
I got a chance to respond. Did I? No, I'm saying, okay, what I hear what you're saying is it is incumbent on us to find out what is the thread of truth of what he's doing, within all this flutter of nonsense. I agree, it's nonsense. If I focused in on the bromance and all the ridiculous detail in the big beautiful bill and how we talk about it, right, I would lose my mind, and that's what you guys sound like you're doing.
No,
All
Charlie
I'm
hasn't
saying
lost his
here,
mind. Beth hasn't lost their mind. I've lost my mind.
the most
I
important
say
thing
I
in
don't
my
have Trump derangement syndrome. I have Trump supported derangement syndrome. I don't have an issue with Trump. He does what he does. I have an issue with people that believe in Trump and then say when he's full of shit, it's okay.
it's not. Do you think I think it's okay? You think I think it's
Charlie,
okay that he
Charlie,
bullshits
can
and
Charlie
lies
jump
to the
in now?
country?
Can Charlie jump in now? Because
Of
I'm going
course.
nuts. I'm going nuts here.
I just no, I wanted to bring it back to like a more simple question. Does what the president say matter at all?
It
Now,
depends.
if you don't think it matters at all, that's one
Of
position.
course it
Okay,
matters.
okay,
Of course it
all
matters
right.
at all.
Let
But
me, let me, let
it
me
depends. It really depends. When the president of the United States goes to the national prayer breakfast and says, "No one loves Jesus Christ more than I do," right? No, it doesn't mean anything.
okay, okay, so
What is he
So are
talking
we
about?
talking about that though? Are we using that as
this
the
is
prime
wait,
I'm
this
just
is
example?
saying,
can I just
what a
finish?
general question. Of course, it
But here's
depends
the
on what he's
thing.
saying.
I'm
Go
trying to
ahead, Charlie.
finish one very short thought there. You guys didn't. I had one question. I said, first of all, do you think at any time it's very important what the president says? It doesn't matter. And if it does, then if at any given point you can say, well, that was just bullshit, that's just marketing, that's just Trump being Trump, then how are we to say that any of it matters? Because it seems that anytime something is taken in a context where he feels he has to defend himself or supporters have to defend him, it is always the same. That's Trump being Trump. You got to just understand, he's just talking marketing. That well, no. Then if that's the case, then nothing he says can matter because you can't assume that the general public is going to be. I know what the real thing is, and it's on us to figure out when he's really being serious and when it's just Trump being Trump. That doesn't work. So it either has to be none of it matters and we shouldn't listen to anything he says, or we have to accept anything he says because that's the responsibility you take on being the leader of the United States.
Being a citizen
you can't have it both ways.
That's a very binary framing. Those are our only two choices. Either everything he says matters or nothing he says matters. That's nonsense.
If you can pick and choose anything and say,
guess what?
Well, you're not supposed to believe that because that's what happens. It happens over and over and over again. And as soon as he's questioned on something, it's always the same response. That's just Trump being Trump. How are we to know?
Okay, so let me give you let me give you the threads of what is he doing.
Can AI do it? Can AI know what he means?
No, let me give you the threads. Okay. In the international market, he's trying to reestablish with Iran normalized relations, and he's getting Putin, Russia, to help him to get a new nuclear deal that will be permanent, not just a 10-year deal signed under Obama, right, which would have expired and stuff like that, but a permanent deal. He's trying. That is the linchpin to resolve the Palestinian question in Gaza, because Iran is their support, right? And instead of supporting Israel's interest in going to war against Iran, right, he's trying to normalize the relations with Iran. That's one. In Ukraine, he is trying to end the war in Ukraine. The reason why he's failing at ending the war in Ukraine is because our European partners are hell-bent on standing Zelensky up. And so therefore, he's saying, very well. I guess they have to fight it out. And Russia will defeat them this summer. That's all. It just will kill a lot more Ukrainians, right? And he was trying to prevent that. That's what he was trying to do. On the domestic front, he has used the bludgeon of the tariff regime, dangling out there, pushing it back on, delaying it here and there to try to destabilize the economic incentives that U.S. multinational corporations have to produce U.S. goods and services abroad and sell them back into the United States, right? He has destabilized that market, right? Nothing is set in stone yet. Nothing has been codified yet, but that's what he's trying to do. These are the huge, big strokes, that he's trying to do. All the rest of the details is a lot of nonsense that is hit or miss. It's not the primary thing. What is he doing every week? It's on those two subjects, okay? Those three subjects. That's what he's doing. That's the thread. Now, you don't want to talk about that, or you want to get into that, we can do that. But if you want to talk about, challenging the Supreme Court and trying to come up with new powers for the presidency, in U.S. constitutional law, there is historic tension between the three branches of government over their power. And over the last 50 years, the executive branch has expanded the most, right? And he's trying to expand it even more. Okay. But
to the point where we're living in a dictatorship.
It didn't start with Trump. It didn't start. Every president tries to expand their authority over Congress or over the Supreme Court, right? And so that's a part of the natural tension in how U.S. constitutional law works, right? So it's not so we need to stop this nonsense, because when Trump does it, it's never been done before. It's not true. Every president tries to do this and does it in their own ways.
Nothing's untrue about what we say about Trump. May have the integrity to make his intentions clear. That's great. The problem is his intentions. So let's be clear on one thing. He waged war on 7 billion people, economic war. To say we're bringing back manufacturing to America, like I said once before in a podcast, I thought it was this one, Americans want to wear Nikes, not sew Nikes. He's not bringing back any jobs. The jobs that are gone are gone. They've been going away for years. It has nothing to do with foreign competition. There's automation. I mean, the $50, $70 an hour jobs, the jobs that are costing the American automakers $70 to $90 an hour, insurance, benefits, the actual pay, those are gone to automation. We keep arguing the point that they're going to China or they're going to Japan or they're going to Mexico. Actually, Toyota employs a lot of people here in America at a really good wage.
Does American labor agree with you, Coach Trippy, or do they support Trump? American labor. Just obsessed.
I'm just saying, are the jobs coming back? I'm not saying do we have an agreement. I'm
Well, we
just
have to
pointing
see if
out
the
the
jobs are
fact.
coming back
I'm just
because I
pointing
know
out the fact.
automation is going to take some of those jobs. You're right. Right, but they're not coming back to build fully automated factories. You want to see a revolution, right? You have Apple come back and with the big hundreds of billions of dollars of capital investment that they're claiming that they're going to do to bring manufacturing back to the States and have it be all automated. No, there is going to be some automation. Of course there is.
So
But there's
let's
going
be
to be a
clear.
lot of jobs associated with it. It's the tension.
Let's
It's the
just be
market.
clear of one thing. If Apple brings back jobs, it is at the initiative of the Chips and Science Act that Biden put in place. It has nothing to do with Trump. It has
Well,
nothing to do with Trump. That was the clear
that is
issue.
so untrue.
Apple supported
The-
that legislation because
yeah,
when
yeah.
COVID came
Saying
down and
why
China
does
shuttered their manufacturing outlets, Apple said, we need another outlet. Bring it back to America, send it to India. We can't count on China no more. It has nothing to do with Trump or Trump's
yeah
tariff war.
the reason
We're
why
giving Trump
yeah
credit where
we
credit doesn't belong. It's another
look
issue, and he'll take that credit.
the reason why we were going to go to war, even nuclear war, with China over Taiwan, which is a part of China, right, was because of where the manufacturing is, right? Okay,
We're going to go
right,
to
but
nuclear war now over jobs. Now we're going to suddenly go to,
no,
it's
no,
okay. Trump's
this was
okay. It's
Biden.
okay. The guy that says,
This
I
is
don't like to
no. What
predict
I'm trying to
economic
say to
futures
you
because of my
is that
tariffs, is okay
this was
with
the
nuclear war
this
over
is the
jobs.
this is the neoliberal neoconservative project. The war, Xi and Trump, they are friends. They have a relationship, right? It
The
wasn't
relationship is
no.
Trump
The
sucks Xi's dick.
neoliberal neoconservative project was to go to war to make China an enemy over Taiwan because the impact of the technology and the manufacturing in Taiwan, right? But what Trump is saying is, look, China is its own superpower. Russia is its
I got to
own
get these guys
superpower.
refocused. Let somebody jump in
Yes.
other than us. I got to get these guys back on the
But
stage.
can I just finish what I said?
Yeah.
Okay. We have the three superpowers. We're a superpower. We need to bring our manufacturing within our zone of influence. In other words, we're not going to go to war with China over Taiwan. We're not going to, why are we at war with Russia over Ukraine? That doesn't make any sense. This is in Russia's area of influence. What's in America's area of influence? The Western Hemisphere, right? Welcome to the party, Canada. That's that's the historical reality of the situation, and so that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that piece of legislation did not influence Apple bringing technology back.
I'm saying, well,
Trump's
my biggest concern is,
overall tariff regime is to disincentivize
but
the
not
economic benefit of manufacturing overseas and selling it back into the States. That's what he's trying to do. That's, I mean,
my biggest concern is the blind faith in Trump that people seem to have and the
blind faith. You
excuses that
can't have blind faith in everyone. I don't have blind faith in anyone. And again, as we were talking at the
you guys
beginning,
hang on. Let's stop because we're consuming this whole conversation. You guys, I really want to hear from Charlie and Beth.
continue.
Go ahead, Beth. You there?
Did I just where's your sound? Beth, did you
You're on
Sorry,
mute.
I have people talking in the background.
go ahead, jump in. I just criticize Trump or anything. Just help me here. Help me. Because we've got an ardent supporter of Donald Trump, no matter how he does it or what he does. It's apparently the right thing to do. So
I
I'm
don't know,
just
you
trying.
guys kind of got off on a tangent and I couldn't hear what you were saying because you guys are like, you can't start a sentence and then jump in. Then nobody can hear what anyone's saying.
Yeah. I look. Let's talk about the bill. How about that?
Yeah, let's get into it.
How did we get to a point where, I remember doing like a real push of the Tea Party movement, and I don't think I took it seriously enough back then about I kind of blew off it because we're so used to having this huge debt and deficit. But now more and more through the Biden administration, especially, and all the money we spent, so much was wasted and corrupt, in the attempts to fix the effects of COVID. But now we have this big, beautiful bill that both explodes the debt even more and cuts billions and billions in social safety net programs. How did we get there? And please, this justification that, oh, well, the budget office now, this always happens, right? Whatever party's in power, then the budget office is all full of shit for their purposes. And so this idea that, oh no, it's going to generate so much more money that it's not going to increase the deficit as much as, but all serious Republicans, particularly in the Senate, are like, oh, it's fucking bullshit. You can't have it both ways. Now, their answer, of course, is not to get rid of the tax cuts. It's just to cut way more from the social safety net. But this, like I said, does both. It doesn't do anything long term for our economy. And I think at the end of the day, the bond market will dictate this, and probably in very frightening ways in the next few years. That's my concern, is that that our credits can continue to go down. Not just because of the deficit, but the instability within our own country, and again, that's the thing about the tariffs. Forgetting whether you agree with the idea of imposing tariffs or not, this back and forth, the suggestion that this is a plan, that this is Trump's so brilliant, that he's really he's playing four-dimensional chess or whatever. I don't believe that at all. I don't think he has any principles. I don't think he has any integrity, and I don't think he has any real economic knowledge. I think he's pure id. And it just so happens that pure id coming from Donald Trump is what works in today's politics. Clearly, millions and millions of people support him. But I've never believed that is an intellectual plan of Donald Trump, because I don't think he's very intelligent at all. I think he's probably below 100 on the IQ score. He's probably around a middling 80s.
That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's like, it is frightening to think that we are going to both strip people of and again, there's tons of corruption in the safety net. God knows, especially in Medicaid. But again, like I said, but also many people who aren't abusing the system are still going to end up losing needed benefits, especially children who don't really have the ability to manipulate the system. And on top of that, we're also going to continue to explode the debt, which just is mind-boggling to me.
And that's mind-boggling.
We'll see if the Senate can stand up, but I really, at the end of the day, other than maybe Ron Paul and I don't know, maybe a few others, but they don't need to win over much to get this through. And I think he's going to get it through. I think he's going to get his bill, his big beautiful bill.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, and I in many outside of the characterization stuff, your comments about the bill itself, Charlie, I essentially concur with. Anytime you take a look at any of these omnibus bills, I mean, it demonstrates the bipartisan nature of the corruption in our government. No doubt about it. But as it relates, for example, to the Medicaid cuts, and see, this is the kind of stuff, and I know, Charlie, you're going to say, well, you always do that. You always go back. The thing about it is there's a lame duck session. Every president gets a lame duck session where they know who the next president is going to be. And if there's anything critical that they need to do, because they know who the next president is going to be, this is their opportunity to do it, right? And this is where Biden had failed, because you're absolutely right. For years, the Republicans have said that the Medicaid, the increase in the Medicaid subsidy from the federal government that came in the Affordable Cares Act, okay, under Obama, where essentially the Medicaid expansion occurred, where the eligibility for Medicaid as it relates to the income level threshold was increased to make people eligible, and for those additional people, the federal government would subsidize the costs. Okay, that was always going to be at risk from the Republicans because they didn't support that in the first place. Now, the Affordable Cares Act did not make that permanent. it was going to expire. Okay. And so the cut we are talking about is that the subsidies being returned back to the historical level. The Democrats designed Medicaid, and they designed it to have a split between state government and the federal government. That's how the Democratic Party designed it back in the 60s. Okay. All right. Okay. Obama added to the safety net, and it was a beautiful thing in the Affordable Cares Act that extended it to more people. Okay. If if the Democratic Party wanted to protect that subsidy, why did we not pursue? Why? Because it was going to expire. We knew when it was going to expire. Why didn't we pursue an extension? No, we don't do that. What we do is when the Republicans come back into power and they do what they said they were going to do, in other words, end the subsidy, not continue the subsidy. We peers on fire. Oh my God, they're gutting the safety net. This is the states. It's incumbent on the states if they want to continue the Medicaid expansion, right? If the federal government does not want to continue the subsidy, it's incumbent on the states. Right?
The bill just says
I don't agree with cutting. I don't agree with cutting the subsidy. I don't agree. I think it's a horrible thing. I think it's a horrible, horrible thing, right? But when someone tells you they're going to do something, and you don't do anything, it's the same thing that happened with Roe v. Wade. It's the same thing. When they tell you for years and years and years they're going to overturn something, right? And you never codify the protection of it, and you have opportunities, right? Okay, they did what they said they were going to do. I think the big, beautiful bill is an albatross that we won't know the effects for some years. But I don't have any optimism about the effectiveness of it. I agree with you, right?
No,
I really
we're talking
I've
about
looked at it.
How about, I'm interested in your thoughts on the other half of it, because again, I think just about everyone, not everyone, there's some pretty far left lunatics who wouldn't agree with me, but most people agree that there are huge amounts of waste in all elements of the social system that definitely need to be reformed and fixed. And you're not going to do that without hurting some innocent people. That's just the bottom line. I understand that. But then again, then why, on top of that, do we need these tax cuts? Like why do we need these tax cuts? What is the justification? It's become like a throwaway thing. Like, well, we're just expected to do that because we're Republicans. I mean, really? If you want to really reduce the debt, let's fix the problem that we know is broken, not add a new one with these.
I agree.
I don't see what their justification is that the economy requires huge tax cuts for billionaires to keep their businesses here, because the tax cuts aren't going to entrepreneurs. Come on, they're going to Warren Buffett type people.
They're going to big corporate
people
America.
All I can say,
people who make money by making money, by using money.
Charlie, you're right. Here we go again. You are absolutely right. The supply side economics was a catastrophic failure. The notion that you could generate more tax revenues by cutting taxes and increase in productivity, and then tax the higher productivity at a lower tax rate, and you would have higher tax revenues overall, and that would reduce the budget deficits, is a catastrophic failure. You're right. It has never worked. It is a driver of our debt. You're absolutely right, and they're doing it again. Once again, right? Okay, this is what they said they were going to do. I mean, I'm not justifying it. I'm saying I don't agree with it.
No, yeah, but it's just mind-boggling to me. But going to the other side, like increasing the eligibility age for Social Security. I mean, at least up until recently, life expectancy was increasing. I don't understand how people disagree with the idea that, like, listen, it's not unreasonable. If that could solve a huge part of the solvency problem with Social Security, why can't we do that? How long has it been the same age? I mean, people are so afraid of the backlash at the polls, and I get it. There would be a backlash, but it just defies logic that if you've got such a huge problem and it's clearly not going to be solved at the way we're going about things, why wouldn't you just raise that?
I don't think you have
Somebody
to,
explain that to
Charlie.
me.
I don't think you have to raise it, but I understand what you're saying.
Well,
I think
raising
they
it
should. I,
does solve a lot of the
yeah,
issues.
it would solve. Yeah, but here's I would much rather. I don't understand why we cap the Social Security the eligible income for Social Security taxes. That we need to take that off. I don't care if you make $500,000 a year. If you make $2 million a year, you need to pay the same percentage of Social Security tax that someone who makes $40,000 a year. It's a rate, but
But
we
we also
cap.
have to identify, let me just say this real quick before we also have to identify the realization that both parties cannibalize the Social Security fund to fund the
Yes,
debt.
Yeah.
absolutely,
That their
absolutely.
insatiable thirst to spend is
Yes,
what's really, because seriously, and
yes,
I can't be quoted as 100% correct on this, but I do believe Social Security would still be in the surplus area until many years from now if
yes.
Congress did
If
not
we didn't,
cannibalize
yes,
the fund. So let's
absolutely.
just be clear. That's a two-party issue. That is there is
Yep,
collusion on that. There was always, and the post office too. The post office was doing well for years, and they were taking those funds to
yeah,
spend. Now, of course, the post office is an entirely different situation. They're not doing any business, but for many years they were a profitable entity of government, and that profit went to the insatiable desire of Congress to spend.
yeah.
So,
I agree.
but
The
here's,
Republican Party destroyed the post office.
and I
The
think,
post office was could have been much more viable, and you know than the condition it is in today, and it still provides an essential service. It's still to rural communities.
yeah, but
The
not
for profit.
profitable. Not profitable though.
Well, no,
I,
but the
I
thing is,
don't know.
it
I
can
don't know. I
be.
just don't think
It
what it
can
what it
be.
was.
We would try if the post office had the ability to process payments like utility bills and stuff like that. If the post office had the ability to sell other services like other post offices around the world, the post office in Germany, the post office in the UK, that's where the viability is. We hamstring the post office by keeping them narrow to certain things in their revenue flows, and then we have them hyper finance their pension funds. I mean, up front to finance their pension funds. That was the poison pill that the Republicans did under Trump one, right? Is this idea that they need to prepay their pension funds, and so this is what made them gutted their capabilities. The combination of narrowing the services they could provide, not letting them expand and modernize and be more competitive in the current economy because people don't use letters like they did before, right? But no, they won't let them do that to generate new revenues, and they made them pre-fund their pensions. So I mean, they destroyed the
They
viability
did,
of the
but that
postal
was both
service.
parties. I wouldn't say, but if in just in the last few minutes we came to some sort of understanding, maybe that maybe the Republican Party has more of a gravitas to make their intentions clear. I think we've come to that sort of a
Yeah,
conclusion. Like you said, they said they were going to gut Roe versus Wade. Personally, they did say it. I never thought it would happen, but they did say if we can do it, we're going to do it. So they made their intentions clear. So when you say we're gonna cut the subsidy, and you say they always said they were gonna cut the subsidy, they always said they were gonna cut Obamacare. I mean, that was Trump one's agenda, and then he said, I realize how important it is to the American people. I'm not touching it, but he is touching it. So that's not really on the side of making your intentions clear, but. Isn't it don't we come to the realization that in order for these things to not happen, the American people have to be more informed?
I
That
disagree. I disagree that the Roe versus Wade was openly spoken to be overturned. Every single one of the new judges, Kavanaugh, Coney Barrett, they all
Lied.
lied.
They lied, right? Yeah,
they
Yeah.
lied. That's true.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I agree. Yeah. What a circus it was, no doubt. And they. I mean, we've made the confirmation process a circus. So I agree with you. They've lied. I mean, how many? I mean,
I'm
it's
not,
not
I was
just
just
conservative
presenting
judges that
that
lie.
point that when they say they're going to do something, we should believe them because Trump has spouted all kinds of promises that he absolutely could not keep. Although, now he's just completely forgetting what the Constitution or the law says and just kind of bypassing it. But
never knew, never had any idea.
I keep on
He has no
telling you.
knowledge of civics. Come on, come on.
I don't.
No, he
Whatever.
doesn't.
See,
He
so
I
has.
you're.
don't believe you. I don't believe you.
This is
I
the
agree with
danger.
you.
And I
This
don't
is the
believe you.
danger zone. This is the danger zone.
No,
This is
he
the
did
danger
just
zone.
curse all
We,
his nominees to the
yeah,
judicial system.
that,
He just
that
did.
is what when we get into people's motivations, when we get into people's ethics, when we get into why they do what they do and stuff like that, none of us really know that. And
I
we
think
and we
we
need to be
do.
no wait, no, you know what? We really need to be careful because none of us would appreciate that kind of treatment. I can look at your life, Beth, your life, Charlie, your life, Coach. I can look at my life and make character assassination judgments, right? Because it's speculative. Life is not that cut and dry.
Sometimes
So
it's
Come
speculative.
on.
But wait,
all I'm
Christy,
trying to
like,
say is,
is it
all I'm
speculative
trying to
that
say,
Christy Nome doesn't know what habeas corpus means? It's not speculative because she
no,
She
put it
really
out there for the world to see.
that
The
is not
Secretary of
that.
Homeland
But
Security.
that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking. If that is totally, take her on for that, right? But that doesn't go to why she does what she does.
No, but I'm saying
To get to
sometimes
characters.
I agree. A
All
lot
I'm
of times
saying is,
it is speculative and we don't really know.
oh,
But sometimes we do really know.
no, well, not when it comes to why
Ignorance we
people
don't.
do. All I'm saying here is that whatever they do is subject to critique because this is what they did. Whatever they say is subject to critique because this is what they said. I agree with you. But we have in our own lives, we have we see all types of different types of people. There are people that we have known. Tell me if I'm wrong. Haven't you all met someone who what they want to do with you is they want to get a rise out of you? And so they're going to say they're just not the kind of person. They just want to see if they can get the rise out of you. Maybe it's when you were in high school. Maybe, because I kind of try to hang
But the
out with girls
president of
these
the
days.
United States, is that what you're
Right.
saying? Is that
Like
what
when you
you're
have that
comparing him
person
to?
in
Yes,
your life, you can always
yes,
avoid contact with that
yes,
person. But the
yes.
president
You
of the
think
United
Trump
States is
is
in your
that person.
you think Trump is
Trump
trying to
is
get a
that
rise out of
person.
the American
Trump,
population?
the reason, no, not no. See, because the
I'm not,
American,
I'm just
again,
clarifying. It's
the American population supports him. I keep on telling you that. I mean,
and I
it's
keep
not the American
asking
population.
you,
It's a section of the American population whose head explode every time this guy opens his mouth. But does that on purpose because he knows the progressive world and democratic world,
he
their head
does,
is going to explode. He does it on purpose.
you're the
The
ones
Gulf of
whose head is
America, the Gulf
exploding.
of America is designed to make Beth's head explode. I'm
I
telling
think
you.
I'm pretty calm,
It-
comparatively speaking.
well, I'm
Yeah,
saying
I'm the
if
one that lost it, and
you,
that's unusual.
yes, well, this is why he does it. And what I'm trying to say to you here is that when you're dealing with someone who you know is intentionally says incendiary things, right? You cannot just let it take you don't just keep on reacting. Don't okay. Ignore the nonsense. Ignore the nonsense. Charlie, you're right. He's the president. It should be important. But this is a president that says crazy shit. So what do? You find out what's real, what's affecting actual policy, what's he actually doing, and that is where your fight is, right? And legitimately so. It doesn't rationalize the rest of it. I can't control that this president is going to say crazy stuff that no president has ever said in history,
Right, but my
right?
entire life, like I've had to like accept the fact that there have been politicians who I don't agree with in huge ways who make statements that I find absolutely infuriating. But these have always been up until now, until recently, people that I believed really did have an intellectual understanding of government, of processes, and they just happen to have an opinion that I vehemently disagreed with. That's much different than someone in a very, very important position like president or secretary of Homeland Defense or secretary of Defense when they make it clear that they are clearly ignorant as to even the basics of civics. And again, yes, that's cherry picking one with Christy Nome, but it's a perfect example because there are lots of them, and it is absolutely. I'll never be comfortable with the idea that the people in the highest positions of government don't understand the basics of government, have never really read the Constitution, really don't understand, the Bill of Rights or all, the amendments and when they happen and why they happen. And they've shown that time and time again. And again, I'm just saying, I'll never be comfortable with that.
I'm not.
Much more
Charlie, I hear
comfortable
what you.
with people who I totally disagreed with, but at least I believed they believed what they were saying. Where I don't see that anymore.
Charlie, you're making the problem much worse for yourself. Because what I'm saying to you here
I can't
is
control
that,
that.
well, yeah, you can. This is where the demarcation line is. I'm just throwing this out to you, right? To put yourself in a position to speculate whether someone has read the Constitution, to put yourself into the position to assess whether someone has any understanding of ethics or civics, right? Right. The fact that they demonstrate that they don't follow those things, in your opinion, does not mean that they don't understand. It might mean that they have a different point of view. And what I'm saying is what people understand you can't know. How do I understand? How do I know? How can I speculate what Charlie understands? Okay. This is a danger zone. So it makes it much worse for you, as you have said, to look at Kristi Noem, and in your opinion, she doesn't even understand civics. She doesn't even understand the role of government. When you take that position, then oh my God, it blows up everything. It illegitimizes everything she does. And all I'm saying to you is you can't know that. You don't know what she knows. Oh, I'm saying, why drive yourself crazy that way? Just stick to the ridiculous things you feel like she does, and look at that. Don't reach all the way into what's in her head. I mean,
They're parallel. One goes after the other. I mean,
One
no,
does
no.
go.
not-
I'm gonna point. I
I
can
can tell
use
you.
another. Charlie called it cherry picking. I can use another example. Donald Trump didn't know the difference between the Cuds and the Kurds. A minute ago, Iran came up. The Cuds are a force in Turkey that we support. The Kurds are a force in Turkey that we support. The Cuds are Iran's elite military that sponsors terrorism all over the world. Our president didn't know the difference in an interview with a Fox interviewer. And then when the Fox interviewer apologized and said, I'm sorry, this isn't a gotcha question, the president argued, yes, it is a gotcha question. You were trying to get me. So there's big concern when politicians don't understand things like that. So, like he
That
said,
could be
Christine
then that
Noem doesn't even understand habeas corpus. I, eh,
I
there's been no respect for due process by this administration whatsoever. We now have Abrego Garcia back on American soil. Initially, the president presented pictures that were clearly photoshopped of Abrego Garcia
we're
having
gonna run
MS.
this tape again, Coach.
No,
Really?
because now he's back in America facing charges of human trafficking. There's a real concern here. If he was human trafficking, you still had the duty to follow due process before you transferred him to an El Salvadorian prison. So
Yeah.
you're really splitting hairs here when you say it's
No, I'm not
okay
splitting
if
hairs.
Trump is being
Coach,
Trump.
Coach, if I took the position, seriously, you can't have an honest discussion with people if you take the position that the other people involved in the conversation don't understand what they're talking about. I mean, I'm just saying, and this is what you're doing. This is what Charlie's doing. This is what Beth is agreeing to. If your critique of Trump or anyone in his administration is that they don't have a basic understanding of the
I agree with
Constitution,
them
of
100%.
civics, of how the government works and process and stuff like that. Okay, you don't understand that poisons the well of your ability to analyze what they do. This is what I'm saying. If I thought you didn't understand what you were talking about, I would not. How would I treat what you're saying? Okay, all I'm saying is there is no need to go so far as to think you know what people know. You don't. None of us know what anyone else knows.
we
All
know.
we
I'm
know is
sorry.
what
We know what they don't know. Then about
no,
That
no.
yes, we
We
do have a
know
clear understanding of
we
what they
know
don't have a clear
we
understanding
can
of.
see what they do. We do not have to reach to the point of saying they have no understanding of the Constitution. I mean, that's a toxic thing to say. That doesn't help. It's a speculative that there's something that you cannot know. You know, in other words, a person can have an understanding of the Constitution and think they have a right to do it, to do something that you don't think they have a right to do. And you justify them doing the wrong thing by saying they don't understand when they understand and they just disagree. So what I'm saying here is you can't know what people know. Like all you can know is what people do or what people say. And let's keep the conversation there and
but that,
stop
okay,
getting into the
let's keep it
character
there.
assassination of people.
In her actions, in the actions of the Department of Homeland Security, they are showing what she's saying. right? A
That's
lack
right.
of any type of respect for due process is actually being shown. That's what they're doing. And then
But that
she's
doesn't
also
mean she doesn't
saying,
understand.
she's explaining why people do it when they don't even understand the concept. How are they going to have respect for something like due process when they don't even understand what due process is?
Charlie,
Or
it
if
doesn't.
reality,
The
if they
fact
do understand it, it's even worse because then they're showing total disregard for the
Okay,
Constitution.
that's okay, right. And that's what I'm saying. It doesn't, the fact that someone violates ethics or violates civics or violates the Constitution, in your opinion, right, does not mean they don't understand. It may mean they disagree. It may, and right, I agree with you, Coach. If they understand these things and they do it anyway, right, I think that does make it worse. But all I'm asking is why reach to the part where we can't know? It doesn't help the thoughtfulness of the conversation.
I
It
disagree
does
about the
help.
we don't know part. I think we do know.
No,
It
no, we
They
don't
give us
know.
evidence.
Really, really,
They're taking
seriously,
evidence and they go, I know. I
Charlie,
know that specific thing. I know that she doesn't know what habeas corpus means. That's not a small thing. So I can logically assume that there's a lot she doesn't know about the Constitution.
right. Again,
And she has no experience in what she's doing. That's the other thing about it. These people they put in positions where they have no experience. Pete Hegseth
Charlie,
does not
I
have
just think that
experience of
that
dealing
is
with a large department.
And you've got
the deputy guy, Boingo there, the guy in the FBI. I mean, he's picking people who not only forget our assumptions of what they actually know about government. We do know that by their resume, they have no experience for the jobs they're put in, and a lot of times disdain for them.
That's horrible.
Look at our Secretary of Education. It's the same idea.
Oh my God, Linda McMahon.
and you know what Charlie
That's
just pointed out? Charlie just pointed out people with term limits that may time out after this president's gone. But this president's also nominating judges to lifetime positions that have no idea what they're doing. And this Senate is confirming those lifetime nominations because whatever Trump says, they do.
You guys are going to continue to compound this situation.
Well, it's a big issue, and every president has been held to this level of accountability before, up until we say Trump shouldn't be held to this level of accountability.
Well, Trump, when he took an oath to the office.
English is fundamental. And
Hang on,
been speaking
Beth,
English.
just say what you were saying. Say what you were saying.
Yes, please.
Trump took an oath to uphold the Constitution, but then on his interview said, admittedly, that he had lawyers to tell him if he had to uphold his oath. He truly, he does not know. Do I think that's bullshit? No. I'm going to believe what people tell me.
Yes.
Okay. So here we go. Once again.
Although, except
what the Constitution means, is a legal thing, right? Okay. Every president, including Trump, is a constitutional actor who tries to expand what the Constitution means in terms of their power, right? When he says he goes to the White House counsel to say, what is this within his power? Can he do this? Right. That's not an abdication of his responsibility to uphold the Constitution. That is finding out what does the Constitution require, and can we expand that? This is what Congress does. This is what the Supreme Court does. This is what the executive branch does. This is how constitutional actors, that's the natural tension in how our Constitution is a living document. That is not abdication. And but back to what I was saying here is this is a podcast talking about politics where we hope to add some information to people who listen, right? It does not help to participate in the character assassination on things that we actually do not know. I'm sorry. You cannot tell me you know what other people know, particularly people you haven't even met, right? So that's what I'm saying. It's not necessary to say, it's not really, is that how you function with your friends and people in your life, Beth? Is that you tell them?
No. You have a law degree and you can't. I don't know if you've ever actually worked as an attorney, but did you have to pick juries or jurors? Did you have to ask somebody, can you reasonably assume something by somebody's actions or statements? Reasonable assumptions can be made by people's actions and statements.
Yes. relating to their actions and statements. But a reasonable assumption, it's not reasonable. There's no reasonable assumption to say that someone doesn't know habeas corpus. I mean, that
Only
what do you
because
mean?
if somebody says, do you know what
She
habeas
was clear
corpus
on the
is? And
subject,
she
she doesn't
literally
understand
says what habeas corpus is, and it is absolutely the opposite of what habeas corpus is. You can reasonably assume she doesn't understand what it is.
Okay.
Right?
The
I mean,
way,
no, you tell me if I'm wrong.
I'm telling you, you're wrong. I'm telling you that a person, that habeas corpus, that any legal principle, including the Constitution, is not just an etched in stone black letter. It only
Oh,
means
come on. She
what.
didn't
No,
have
no,
any
no. Can
idea
I?
what it
Can,
meant.
She didn't know.
can I finish what
She
I'm
didn't
saying?
know.
They were nibbling at the
No,
edge here.
I cannot express this enough. Okay. Every constitutional actor has, with just like you do, we each make our own what is our understanding of the Constitution? What is our understanding of habeas corpus, right? It's not going to be the same thing, by the way. Beth, Charlie, Coach, Kevin, it's not going to be the same understanding, right? It's our
Unless it's
understanding.
written black
It's
and
our
white.
interpretation. And that's how, and okay, so she has an interpretation. It could be a bad one, but the idea that she doesn't understand because it doesn't align with how you think it, what you think it means, that is just thoughtless, right?
You have a law degree,
Yes, I have a
right?
law degree. Yes, I have a law
And you know
degree.
what
If
habeas
you don't
corpus
need a
is,
law
right?
degree
you
to
can
understand
only
habeas
twist the
corpus.
law
If
to
you could
fit your
read it as a
narrative.
definition. You could read it as a definition. You could Google it and look it up. My point is the way the law works is that all actors have an interpretation, and then you have issues in dispute. You litigate over these things. You pass legislation over these things. The courts make rulings over these things, and this is ultimately what things mean. Habeas corpus has not meant the same thing over the course of U.S. history. It depends on the circumstances and the application and who the actors involved and all those things. All I am saying here is you can criticize her for what she says, but don't speculate about what she knows. That doesn't help.
Her literal
To
words is
speculate.
not
You'll do this all the
speculation.
time with Trump.
No, it's
I
not
mean,
at all
he has no
speculation.
civics.
So
He has no
then
understanding
we're
of the
going back to
Constitution.
then you're going back to the idea that we can't take value in anything anyone says. Because we can't use what they're saying to make any judgments
Charlie,
about what they know.
seriously.
So why say anything? Why would we believe
Charlie,
any of it?
are you saying, okay, I know that you've met people that you've had disagreements with. How would you feel if someone says, because you disagree with them,
That's
right?
not what I'm saying. I'm talking about actual, we're talking like, let's just keep it on one very specific thing. Just this idea of not knowing the basic definition of habeas corpus, not your interpretation, not having a different interpretation. Flat out, the woman does not understand the law as it pertains
to Secretary of Homeland Security.
Very specific to the job she's hired to do.
What I'm saying to you, Charlie, is there's no such thing as a universally accepted basic definition of habeas corpus.
But there's a basic one that
statement.
you can make it clear if you have
a nonsense statement. There is no such thing as a basic
Latin,
understanding,
the body.
universally accepted of any legal term. That's what I'm saying. Okay, I agree that from what you're saying, she doesn't have an understanding of habeas corpus because what she said doesn't seem to align with this basic universally accepted understanding. What I'm trying to say to you here is that she has her own point of view about what it means, and that's what she's speaking to. I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm just saying, Charlie, in a conversation that you've had, any conversation that you've had with someone that they disagree, you two disagree, right? How would you feel if they said the reason why you disagree, that you disagree with them, is because you don't understand what you're talking about?
It's not about disagreement.
There really is a definition of habeas corpus.
It is about disagreement. You don't agree with Kristi Noem. There's nothing wrong with not agreeing with Kristi Noem. But to say that it's factually true that she doesn't know what she's talking about is ignorant. It's a disagreement.
She is factually ill. She is factually ill prepared to be Secretary of Homeland Security.
I think you can tell people can make it pretty clear that they don't know shit about shit by listening to them talk sometimes. It does happen. It does.
Okay. It does.
If we had somebody on this show, other
It
than the
does
four of us, if
happen,
we had a
right?
fifth person that was just
But
making
okay,
nonsensical
but
comments the entire show, would we put up with
yeah,
it?
okay, okay. Look. Hey, I don't know how I got in position on. All I'm trying to say here is it's not helpful to honest conversation where you're dealing with issues of that are controversial, different, that people get animated, people have different points of view about. It does not help to get into people's motivations, to get into character assassination, characterizations about that, right? In the same way, it would be appropriate for me to characterize either of you because we disagree, right? Why we think that's appropriate to do it for public figures, and that's going to help us understand them, right? All it does is create more vitriol, right? Christy Nome didn't just roll off the back of a turnip truck because
Well,
before she became no, okay, no, she was. What do you mean? That's what I'm saying.
All right,
Whatever.
guys, we
That
got
was
to
the
agree to
people voted
disagree
for
and
her
do this again
when
because
she
I
was.
think everybody's we're gonna cut this off and we're gonna wait till everybody gets back on to say goodbye. But we're gonna do this again because I think this has been an incredible conversation. I'm the only one that lost it a little bit, but other than that, you guys have done great, and I'm very appreciative of that. I will say there is a clear definition of habeas corpus right here. It is a legal procedure by which a report can be made to the court alleging the unlawful detention or imprisonment. That was probably the reason that the question came up was Abrego Garcia was being illegally detained, and now we're trying to resolve that. But I'm going to say,
I
can we
heard, yeah,
continue this? Can we
yes, we
continue
can, but
this?
you just read a definition, Coach Drippy, and I'm just trying to say to you here that someone, if someone was asked what does habeas corpus mean, and they don't cite that definition, it doesn't mean that they don't understand.
The
That def
concern is
that
she's the
that that,
Secretary of Homeland
no, 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 no.
Security. And then the
Wait
concern
up,
came
wait.
up because of somebody being illegally detained.
No, no. The thing about it is that again, an understanding of a concept doesn't mean you cite the definition, right? I
Not
mean,
necessarily, but like Charlie
even
said,
if you
she had
cite it,
no clear
even if you cite
understanding
the
of it.
definition, it doesn't mean you understand it. In other words, that's all I'm saying. It's not as simple as just reading the definition and saying that's your under. No, and so we can. It doesn't prove the case that she doesn't understand habeas corpus. I mean, that's a profound statement to say, right? That she doesn't understand. And on what's the basis of how do we know what she understands? We know what she
she was
says, and we
asked a
know
question and
we
she had no
disagree
idea how to
with
answer
what
it.
Right. If we
we
were asked the question, if the four of
hey,
us was asked the question, we
hey.
would have done better with the answer than she did. And she is the
And
Homeland
okay,
Security
no,
If I
no, no,
Secretary.
bring,
no.
if
That's
I bring my
because
card to the chemist
you
and I
all
say, I'm
fundamentally
having some,
different.
I'm having some engine
Hang on,
trouble.
one at a time.
Like, he's like, have you changed the mouse on its wheel lately? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, my car's not running well. He's like, well, it's probably the mouse. What do you mean the mouse? You know, the one that runs on the wheel, that powers your car. Oh, wait a minute. You have no idea how a car works, do you? Oh, well,
Yeah.
no, maybe. Maybe he just has a different concept of how
You
a car
would
works.
Yeah,
take your car to another
okay.
mechanic.
That was a
You
good
guys keep
analogy,
on
Charlie. I
digging
loved
because
it.
you guys keep on digging because people actually are listening to
That
this.
was a great analogy. You have to
Right,
acknowledge that.
yeah,
You
yeah.
can't.
I
You
hope
can
they
defend
do.
even Christy Nome. That was a great
Oh,
analogy. I mean,
what do you mean a great analogy? That was just
that was
nonsense.
Christy Nome
No,
as a
no,
whole.
no.
She had no
All
clear
I'm saying,
understanding of her
all I'm
job.
saying is, first and foremost, again, I don't know the context. I'm just saying, criticize what she said, take apart what she said, differ with what she said, but that does not reach into what she knows. That does not
The
reach
con
into what she understands. Because, I mean, seriously, everything
the
that
context was
Charlie
literally
says does not inform me that is Charlie really well read and understand these complex issues he talks about. I don't reach to that level. I just hear what he has to say and we have the debate. Same thing with Beth, and you all do the same thing to me, right? We don't help the conversation when we get into each other's heads and try to speculate why we say what we say, what we understand and what we know. If we want to discuss politics in a thoughtful way, most of this stuff is third rail stuff. We need to, if you want to keep the heat out of it, let's keep the character assassination out of it. Let's keep the fact that you think people are stupid out of it, that you think people have no ethics, they have no
okay. I
understanding
just
of the
want. I'm sorry.
Constitution.
I have to say
Let's
this.
keep those
I
things
don't.
out
I
of
Hang
it.
haven't
on.
heard anyone on this podcast call anyone else's statements ignorant
No,
except you.
what do you mean? The very thing substantively, Beth, Where were you? We're talking about people who say,
You're
Trump
saying we can't
has,
have a,
Trump
a
has no
substitute
understanding of the Constitution.
conversation.
No, no, you said it yourself. Trump has no understanding of the Constitution, right?
Listen,
I mean, okay, this is what I'm talking about. Well, how do you know what understanding
Let's
he has?
be
Do I
clear.
know what
By
understanding you have?
actions.
No, no,
wait a
no.
minute.
Your actions
Wait,
don't
wait,
tell
wait,
me what
wait.
your understanding is.
What I'm
That's
saying is,
ridiculous.
don't you were saying we shouldn't be assuming somebody's understanding of what any topic is
That's right.
ever. But I said the
No,
only person who's ever made any
talk about
comments
what people
about
say.
anyone else's uh, what they've said to be ignorant was you. You're the only one who said that doesn't make sense. That's
Oh yes,
wrong.
because
That's
that was
ignorant.
you no, no, no.
No one
One
has said
time
that to
and
you.
one time to you, and you know why, Beth? Because
You
you
just said it
said
today to
you
Charlie.
no, 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 no. I
You
didn't say
started
that
the
Charlie was.
conversation
You
with
did
that. The
not
first
say
thing I
Charlie.
said, you're like, that's insane.
And not only that, they're
Once,
right.
but
Both of
hold on,
them
hold
are
on.
right that you did start the
But I said to
conversation and you
Beth,
did say it to
no,
Beth.
I
But
said it to Beth one time in that previous conversation because Beth said that tariffs never work. That's what
and
she
they do
said.
not.
Because
Tariffs never
I
work.
do. I was going to bring up you when you're talking about the Warsaw Pact. If you
That
remember,
is
during that
simply not
time,
true.
we had the
What do you
Smoot
mean
Hawley
tariffs
tariff.
never work? Depends on what you're talking.
Wait, why do you wait?
And
Wait. You said that you did make that statement to Beth. You made that in response to what she said, right?
yeah,
Okay,
I
so
said
how do
yes.
you know?
That's
Because
what
what
she
she said,
said.
just because she said it, how do you know that's what she's really thinking? Is that what
No,
you're
no,
just trying to
no,
tell us?
no.
You can't
Because
just say what people
it
are
is the
saying.
absolute statement. It's the absolute tariffs never work. Really? So there are many reasons why people do tariffs and they never work. Come
You're
on. I
just
mean,
you're
that's a
bringing up
categorical,
How do
that's a
you know that's
you are
what
categorical
arguing the point I
untruth.
just made.
that's just what she said?
That's
Just because
no,
she said
no,
it doesn't
no,
mean that's what she meant.
no, because the statement was categorical. If she said this person's tariffs didn't work because they were trying to do this and this is what happened, that's a totally debatable statement. I don't understand anything more than what she's saying.
I
But when
only
you
went
make a
by historical
categorical
precedents.
statement,
That's
when you
all.
make a categorical statement, it's on tape. We go back and watch it,
let
right?
me be
I mean,
clear.
and
Let me be
say
clear. Let me make this
tariffs
one
never
last.
work.
Let me make one
Tariffs
last
never
point.
work.
Hang on. I want to make one last point. Dan Quayle was an adamant, dedicated conservative lieutenant of the Republican Party. He was handed a card that spelled potato wrong, and he read from the card. His character assassination was brutal, and he was shunned from the entire world of public opinion from that moment forward. He
And it was
also
wrong.
did it. He also did an interview where he talked about abortion being absolutely a no. And then when he was asked about his daughter, he said she had to make her own decisions. From that point forward, he had zero credibility. We have experienced these things from Trump and Trump's staff now going on thousands of times, and no one has ever held him accountable. So here's the simple fact. If the Secretary of Homeland Security doesn't know what habeas corpus is the president of himself doesn't know the difference between the Cuds and the Kurds. If the defense secretary doesn't know enough to not bring his wife to national security meetings that require the highest levels of clearance, we have a real issue in America at the moment as far as leadership and leading the world and as far as leading America. And if there is no acknowledgement that that is an issue, that is a bigger concern than the issue I just mentioned. We have to hold the president accountable. We have to have a higher standard for the president than we have for ourselves because he is the person with the big red button, the biggest red button, according to himself,
Yeah,
on his desk.
I think you
And
just
he is
nailed
the
it, Charlie.
person that can make very big decisions with a phone call, like launching the new beautiful F-47 fighter jet and bombing some country that doesn't expect it. Because we just need to understand he doesn't really mean it. The person that took the call on the other end should have known the F-47 should have never took off from the naval ship. No, this is a real concern. You're mitigating a concern of an incompetent president. We're just telling you flat out, you're completely wrong to have this as your operation, as your opinion of how things should go in America. There is a president that doesn't have a clear understanding of a lot of things and also has total disregard for the law. And we will continue to have these podcasts that hold him accountable. And the Democratic Party is doing a great job at mitigating the destruction he is trying to impose on America. His his $2 trillion in savings from Doge has now been submitted to Congress as $9.1 billion. So we've done a great job at saying stop the bullshit, stop cutting out things that really work, stop cutting out things you just simply don't agree with. We're all responsible. We're all responsible to be informed and understand what's going on, including the president. Very
So that's a
much so,
wonderful
including the
that's a
president.
wonderful speech, Coach. I appreciate that. We obviously disagree, and then that's what we
And
have
that's
been
why I think we should
engaged in.
continue this conversation.
Yes,
We are doing
but
such a beautiful thing.
but can I respond?
Yes.
To that monologue that you just gave. All I am saying here is that
Wait, why
regardless
has
of
that
whose
got to be a monologue?
I know. I don't think I've ever been accused of.
Now you're gonna
I'm not even. I never even graduated out of
what?
college.
What?
I don't think I'm capable of.
Because reason why, Charlie, that was monologue is because it was about 3 or 4 minutes long. It covered a number of issues.
Approximately a minute.
It was all at.
Yeah,
It
I
was
don't think
all
it was
at
3 or
10.
4 minutes.
Oh yes, it was. It was. Don't worry, it's on tape, right? It covered the overall. It wrapped up this whole conversation from the point of view of Coach Trippy, right? Nothing wrong with that.
Which is,
He's the host of the show of the podcast. He deserves that. All I'm saying here
I thought it
is.
was excellent, Trippy.
Of course you did, Beth. Of course, there's not a hairline difference between you, Charlie, and Coach Trippy.
You know what?
That's why it's
I'm really
always-
happy
that's
Beth
why
thought it
it's
was excellent
always
because her
three.
opinion
It's
means the world
always
to me.
three
So does
against
yours.
one.
So does
And it's-
Charlie's.
once
But
again, see, this is why it's monologue because you got to say it. No one interrupted you, Coach. Okay, I'm trying to say respond to that since the choir over there already agrees with you. So okay. I
No, I
got
just
you.
think that you should rewatch our videos.
Point of view that's shared by most Americans is on my side of the fence, right? And unfortunately, yes, we need to hold Trump accountable, just like we need to hold every person in office accountable. Yes, we need to put their feet to the fire. I think the best part of this conversation today was, for example, us agreeing that the big beautiful bill is an albatross and a nightmare, and unpacking how it hurt the social safety net. We have agreement on that. What's happening to Medicaid and the fact that the federal subsidy is going away, and so Medicaid expansion is at severe risk. All that's true. We agree. Where we disagree is on the relentless need to character assassinate, to talk about what people know, to talk about people's ethics, to talk about people's motivations, right? As if we actually know, as if that adds anything to the conversation. It doesn't. It only polarizes us more. Anyone who supports the president only gets turned off by that kind of language, right? Okay, we don't need to do that. Let's have an honest conversation. Let's have an honest
That's a great
conversation
monologue.
and keep.
It's an interesting point
This is
coming
not
from someone who's doing it in support.
No, I thought that was good.
Done. I would like to have a friendly conversation where we
I was
talk
being
about
sincere.
substantive issues, and not get into characterizations of why people do what they do and what people know.
leadership
That's
and
all.
character go hand in hand.
I agree, but the idea that you can get into what someone knows,
She
that what
didn't
someone's
know. We're not getting
motivation.
into what she knows. We got into what she didn't know. She wasn't able to answer the question.
Okay.
If it was Jeopardy, she would have got
I'm not going
and they
around.
would have subtracted the money.
We got it, Coach. We got it. We know that you disagree. I disagree. Let the listeners make up their own mind. Beth, you get the last. Oh, Charlie, you all get the
Yeah,
last.
Charlie, take it. I thought both of y'all
I'll say
had
this.
great.
I've been thinking this. Listen, I don't know Kanye West personally. I think he's a lunatic, and I base that on the things that he says in posts. That's it. And I think that's fair.
I think so too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I had to be in there something.
I tell you what, okay, because that's fine. You can be petulant if you want, Charlie. I get it.
Petulant.
See what I mean?
Why being petulant?
Oh Lord,
Okay,
I better
we
cut it
spent
off
the
now.
last
This
Yeah.
is
we spent the last hour asking that we don't get into the character stuff, and your closing comment is someone we did not talk about, who you say is what? A lunatic? I mean, it's. I mean,
He was using it as an example.
You're the one pressing the idea about.
anyway. What are you, a child?
I am fine discussing character. And so,
I'm
so-
okay with discussing character.
And you do another character assassination? I mean, do you know him? I don't know him.
I don't. I said from the beginning. I said I don't know him. I have no
The
idea.
greatest, the greatest character assassinator of all is Donald Trump. He routinely assassinates.
Amen, Trim.
I
Amen,
mean,
Trippy.
we can't take character assassination out of the conversation when in fact the president, that's typically what he does.
We don't have no.
I mean,
You,
a reporter said you
Coach,
typically call women fat and stupid, and he says only Rosie O'Donnell, and everybody laughs. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's
You can't have this high standard when the president of the United States is racing to the bottom and nobody knows how far low he can go.
Oh no! So then you want your podcast to go gut,
Not
bottom
routinely, not at all,
No,
not at all, not
I
at
try
all.
to keep
But
it.
I
I
mean,
try
if
to
it
keep it at
comes
the
up
high
as a
level
valid part of the
because
conversation,
none
it
of
is
that
a valid
affects my
part of the
life.
conversation.
None of that affects my life. All the characterization stuff that doesn't affect my life. That only creates more stress, more vitriol. Right? Haven't you noticed that's okay? Why participate in that? I'm going to tell. I'm going to say it right before we end the podcast. Right. If you all are going to be committed to doing that type of thing, I won't participate because I'm trying to have a thoughtful conversation that does not engage in character assassination. We get that all the time on the news. We get that all the time on social media.
Honestly,
Well,
you really should go back. I want you really, I beg of you, go back and listen to the very beginning of this podcast in relation to what you just said. Listen to yourself, your first reaction to the minimalist thing that I said.
Minimalist.
It's on
Minimalist.
It's a word.
I know exactly. And yes, everyone go back to that, right? Everyone go back to that because you from your point of view, it is minimalist to just characterize and to speak to something you can't know.
Remember what I said? What are you referring to? I'm talking
No. We don't have to repeat. We don't have to run the tape. It's on the tape. So, so Coach Trippy, go ahead and wrap us up, and then we can all go back.
We're gonna do it again, and hopefully, if we don't, I mean, I don't want anybody to leave mad or feel like we're routinely character assassinating people. I don't think we've done that at all. I think that's not
in a shameful way. In a shameful way. And
when
I try to draw the line and say, let's not do this, because you see, what you don't get is it's the three of you like piling on in this way and going back and that's what
let me just say
environment.
No, let me just say, I watched the last video that we did where Charlie had to leave early. I felt horrible because I was one, I think, primarily speaking the most. But if you were to watch those videos, if you were to say, I can't get a word in edgewise, you said on the last video, I can't get a word in edgewise, because then you jump in, then Charlie jumps in, and then Beth has something to say. If you feel attacked, then maybe it should be 2 on the left and 2 on the right. I have no problem dropping out because I feel like Charlie has more substance to add to this.
No, I don't want nobody dropping out at all. That's not what I want.
My point being is, you can't argue that you haven't had a chance to get your point across because you primarily dominate.
I was going to say you are at least half the position. You're speaking at least half the time. 1 or 4 people, at least, and that's
right. You please watch it. You primarily dominate.
I know. I think other than Coach Trippy, I speak the most. Right. I absolutely think that's
But
true.
Here's the thing.
Right.
I don't want anybody to feel like
what happens
that
in real time, Coach will say something, Charlie will say something, Beth will say something. And then by the time I come to say something, that's where the interjection comes in, right? There's so many things to comment on, right? And that's what I mean. This is okay. I'm not, all I'm saying is if we could keep it out of the character stuff.
I don't think we got that far into character assassination.
That's where you live. That's where you all live. You're very comfortable talking about, what people know, very comfortable talking about people's ethics, very comfortable talking about people's commitment to the Constitution and all this other, that's
if you take all that out of the equation, we don't have anything to speak about.
That's not true.
That's
no.
That is a portion of the topic.
You have actually what people say. You have actually what people do.
You just said we can't go by what people say. You just said that.
No, I didn't.
You said we can't take.
I said that's what we should be talking about. If you want to talk about, I'm saying to you with Trump, he says a lot of crazy shit. So if you take it literally, I'm not saying don't, it doesn't matter, but that's appropriate to talk about. I'm talking about the character stuff. And Charlie ends the conversation by doing what? Just a character assassination on Kanye West, and y'all are turtle and stuff like
Because he
that.
was making the
I mean,
point,
this
he
is
does
there is
consider what
point
he
to that.
We
said.
can't,
That's
okay, we can't
exactly
judge
the point.
anybody's character. We're not allowed to judge anybody's character.
What is the interest in judging anyone's character? Who are you,
Because
Beth,
if
to judge anyone's character? I mean, what
because
is that?
no, I'm a voter. If you want to be president and you want to put yourself, then you are putting yourself on a pedestal to be
Okay.
judged.
Well, talk to
That
a
is the
friend about
definition of
that.
voting,
Talk to a friend
democracy.
about the idea of putting
I'm
yourself in
talking to
position
you
to
guys.
judge
I'm talking to you three
someone's.
about it.
No, I guess because apparently hearing it from me doesn't matter. What I'm saying to you here
It
just
does
disagree.
matter. That's why you're
no,
here.
the toxicity of our social discourse, of our political discourse, is because we're willing to character assassinate all the damn time. And that's what the three of you do. And you think it's appropriate. And I'm trying to say we need to back off that part of it and
Okay.
talk about the substance of what's going on.
What's your
It does
definition
not
of
have to
character?
get
Please,
personal.
please give me an example of a character assassination. Pretty harsh word in itself.
Christine
Yeah, what-
Nome does not understand habeas corpus.
That's
Okay.
That's
character
not
assassination.
character
Yeah, I was gonna
assassination.
say,
That's
can you
an
go
assessment.
through-
Yes,
That's a
that's
valid
character
assessment.
assassination.
Asked a question, and she doesn't know the answer. And so for me, calling it that is character assassination.
Charlie does not understand the Constitution. Charlie does not understand the English language. Oh, right. Okay, so then what does that do to the nature of our discussion if I take that position, right? Does
It's not a
that mean that I'm
position.
gonna appreciate
It's not a
anything you
position.
say?
It's a fact.
It's-
She was asked a question,
Oh, it's
and
a
she
fact
did not
that
know the
Charlie
answer to the
doesn't
question.
understand
That's
the
not a fact.
Constitution.
That's
It's a
not
fact.
character assassination.
That's not a
knowing
character
something,
assassination.
someone not knowing something.
That's
If I
not-
say that
important
about you,
that they should
Charlie,
know that. That's not character assassination.
so
I think it's
so-
important that a person in her job knows that the answer to that
Of
question.
course it
That is not
Of course it
unreasonable.
is. But you
It's not
created the straw man by assuming that you know that she doesn't know.
She
What do you
answered the
mean?
question
That's
as
my
if she
point.
didn't
Doesn't know because she doesn't know.
I
She
think
made it
it's
very
okay.
clear she doesn't
You
know.
just disagree with what she said. There's nothing wrong with you disagreeing, right?
Can I
But
tell
what
you?
do
Can I
do?
use a whole new segue? The CEO of Google said the reason I got the job is when Sergey Brin asked me about Google Chrome. I said I can't answer that question because I don't know. Christine Nome would have been better off saying I don't know. She didn't know. It's okay
You
to
just
say I don't know.
Coach, you just
If-
disagree with what she said. That's all.
No,
I didn't,
no.
she didn't say anything.
Can we not make assumptions on what people say?
She said she knew. She said she knew. She said what she thought. She
But
said
what I'm
what she
saying
thought.
is, what I'm
Okay.
asking is, can we not make assumptions based on what people say?
When
I mean,
you come back with-
I feel like maybe like going
Then
after
why-
the three of
listen,
us.
I think
or the
it's
four of us.
dangerous when you make assumptions about stuff that you can't know. Yes, if I take the things that you say, Beth, and think that means, because I've heard what you have said over all these podcast conversations, right? That means I can make an assumption about your character, right? Is that what you're saying? No.
I think a
No.
character is like saying like somebody is an evil
No,
A
person.
that's what I'm
pedophile or
saying.
something.
I can make an assumption about what you understand because I've heard what you say. No.
Well, you
And
did.
you would
You
be
said
offended if I did.
the last time you did. I'm just saying.
No.
You should.
When
If you could
made
go
I
through.
know you made an absolute statement. Tariffs never work. Is
No,
what
no,
you
I said
Go back
tariff-
to it. No,
Dude, I watched it.
Yes, you said tariffs never work. Never work. And I
Okay,
said that that's an
then give
ignorant
me a time
statement.
in
That's not
history
true.
when a
Wait,
tariff war has worked.
Again.
Then I'm just saying,
There are
if you can
lots
make
of
that
reasons
statement, so
tariffs used to be the economic policy of the country in the 1800s. What do you mean? I mean, before
According to Warren Buffett, tariffs don't work. I'll say that. According to his
No.
own words, Warren Buffett generally said
Correct.
tariffs aren't a
Okay,
good
cool.
tool
We're all
to
getting
use.
That's different than someone making this absolute
They're not.
statement. Tariffs never
They
work.
don't. When
That was a specific thing because you made an absolute statement, Beth. Right? I mean, my gosh, right?
I'm just gonna
it's
say-
a word. All I'm saying here is that we do the conversation, we do the audience a service if we keep the conversation on stuff that they can verify, that stuff that they can check out, stuff that they can think about, and keep the the characterizations of what people know, of what people's ethics are, and stuff like that out of the conversation. If you
That would
want to
have to
go
be an
there, I'm
Characterization,
opinion
not interested.
podcast.
Huh?
characterizations and character assassinations are first of all two different things. We did not assassinate Christy Noem's
Okay, okay,
character.
oh, right,
We did quote.
because
We did talk about an interview where she seemed
she's
at the least
the
vague
head of
or
Homeland Security Administration, and she
and
doesn't
there is a
understand
large. You
habeas
know what?
corpus.
When we talk about
Okay.
character assassination, Donald Trump, the president of the United States, just bashed the whole entire federal society because of their recommendations to judges, because they're not always seeing things his way. And he has also character assassinated
I think it's
other
awful that he
presidents
does
and
that. I
other
agree with
judicial
you. I
nominees
agree
from
with
other
you. That's
presidents.
awful that he does
So
that.
it is what I'm trying to say is
No, but
whether
we
we
don't
like
have
it
to
or
do
not,
that.
whether
No,
it's
we
an
don't have to do that.
it does
Why
come
should we
up.
do that?
It does come
No,
up.
it doesn't have to come up. If you want to have a thoughtful conversation, this is why people can't talk about politics. Because okay, but the first thing is, oh, we must disagree because our values are not the same, right? The characterization stuff. And that's all I'm saying. So if we can be thoughtful, if we have an argument to make, we then don't need the crutch of characterizing someone's motivation or talking about what people know or don't know, right? Make your argument on the merits and it will stand for what it is. And the people who listen to the podcast will then appreciate it. But all this character stuff, it just turns people off. It
Well, I
says,
don't think
oh,
we were on character as much as we were on policy, frankly. But I do think character does come up. To say it shouldn't.
it continues to come up. It's a recurring theme. It's not the only thing you all say. You all primarily talk about substance, but too often we spend time talking about what we don't know. I would never say, speculate about, you don't have an understanding of the Constitution, right? I mean,
I,
you
th-
don't have an understanding of a particular principle of the Constitution. I
I
mean,
don't think anyone
I
said
never,
anything. I don't think
No,
anybody has
no,
made
but
any
you say
personal
this about these
attacks.
public figures.
no.
You say this
They're
about these
public
public figures.
figures. They
No,
are.
that does
Yes.
not make it. No, that does not make the
If you were
conversation
really that, if no, no,
appropriate.
wait, if you were really that uh, big on not making character assassinations, how can you defend somebody who assassinates everybody's character every day of the week?
Because he is the president of the United States,
Oh,
and what he's doing.
Okay, so
Excuse me.
because he's
Excuse me. No,
a person of,
let me
yeah, that's
finish.
my, you do the same
But
thing. So I'm just saying,
you asked me a question. Let me answer the damn question,
okay.
right? I defend. I am talking about what is he doing that's affecting the lives of the 78 million Americans who voted for him. That's what I'm talking about. That is important. What he's doing overseas, what he's doing with the tariff policy, those things are important. I agree. It's a nightmare what he's doing in climate. I agree. It's a nightmare. His big, beautiful bill is so packed with so much corruption and that it hurt the safety net by not extending the federal subsidies on Medicaid and stuff like that. I agree that those are problems. Those were good conversations and substantive conversations. All this that we're talking about is you all are actually defending the ability to make these character judgments on people that only poison the analysis of what they are doing, right? That's
we're
all it
living in a
does.
toxic
If you
time.
say
We're
if you're
living in a
saying
toxic
people are
time.
not committed to, they're not committed to democracy, they're not committed to the Constitution, they don't even understand these issues or whatever. Everything then that they do is illegitimate. This is what you're framing it in a way that creates that type of tone. And I'm saying to you, we don't need to do that. We
We
shouldn't do
shouldn't
that.
do it, but you know what? It is a part of the fact of the matter is
No,
we've
it's
got a
not.
president that's saying Joe Biden didn't have his senses and every piece of legislation he signed was done by auto pen and it should all be null and voided. This is a concern. We're living in a toxic time. It's going
That's
to
a good
come up in
conversation.
conversation. It's going to come
That's a
up in
good con.
conversation.
It should be,
And then comes the concern of
but the motivation shouldn't.
is this person's character leading them to believe this bullshit?
Let
And
people
it's going to
make up
come up in
their own
conversation.
minds about people's character. Why do we need to editorialize? And that's what I'm saying. It poisons the conversation
I think it's
because
going to
if
come
some
up in
if
conversation.
it it doesn't have to. If
We
I bring it up, unless you want to divide your audience based on whether they agree to your character judgment, because that's what you're talking about.
you never
There's,
have to
there's a
speed
lot of
when you're
people who don't agree with what you're saying. I mean, if let me tell you, the Democratic Party is in shambles. in shambles. So if whoever you think is identifying with this bent view of the character of these people, most people don't agree. Okay, there are some people who do agree. Do you want to reduce your audience to just the people who agree? Right, but you agree that
No.
that
Let
Trump
me
doesn't
say this.
understand the Constitution.
No.
Fine.
No.
Then
I'm just
stop
going to say this
doing
to
this
try and
poisonous
summarize, and
stuff.
then you never in life there's a reality. You never have to speed to get somewhere any faster. You're going to wind up on an open road. You're going to step on the gas, and you're still going to wind up at a red light. That same red light as the guy that didn't step on the gas next to you. It happens. It happens. Character is going to come up in these conversations. Character
Well,
assassination. If we're going to generalize, if we're going to call character, if we're going to open the can to call a lot of things that we talk about character assassination, when in fact I consider character assassination like when Elon Musk called the rescuer a pedo or something, the rescuer of the Thailand kids that were stuck in a cave, he
it was
called the
horrible.
rescuer a
I think that
pedo.
was a horrible
That's
statement.
character assassination. We have never
Look,
crossed that line. We
look,
have never crossed that line in any of
yeah,
our
that's not true.
conversations.
That's not
We
true.
have
That's
never.
a
We've never
no, no,
even
wait.
used the terms that would be
Coach,
condescending
you take an extreme example and you say that y'all
character
have
and
never done
assassination
that.
is an
No, no,
extreme
no, no, no.
accusation.
When you talk about someone doesn't have any ethics, when you talk about someone doesn't have any civics, when you talk about that someone doesn't understand the
We never
Constitution,
said she
when you
didn't have
talk
any
about
ethics or
no, I'm
civics.
saying when you talk about someone doesn't understand a basic tenet of their job, Homeland Security doesn't understand habeas
Habeas
corpus.
corpus
Okay,
is a
okay,
basic tenet
right.
of their
Yes,
job.
of her job, right. Okay. When you do that, that is character assassination. It doesn't have to be as extreme as what Elon Musk
It
said.
would
It
come up
doesn't have to be an
if
extreme
she was not
extreme.
the Homeland
It
Security person
it
and she was having
it
a
doesn't
conversation in an office cafeteria,
it
it would
only
come up in an
demonstrates that
HR
you
meeting
disagree with
as a
her.
reevaluation
You can
contention.
disagree with her, but that doesn't mean that she doesn't understand what she's talking about. This is basic. If you dealt with an actual person in your real life that way, that just because you heard what they said and you're prepared to tell them that they don't understand what they're talking about, okay, great. We'll see how long that conversation goes. That's what
I
poisons
would
the
ask
well.
for
I'm just saying.
clarification. I would say, can you please
Charlie's
elaborate?
convinced that he can do that and stuff like that. But see, that's the kind of
I'm
stuff,
convinced we can
that
all do that because they're public figures.
people would object to. People would object to. We would not want someone to tell us that. So the fact that these people and Trump does it all the time, Rosie O'Donnell, I agree with you. We do not have to lower to that level, and we could still analyze Trump. We don't have to lower to the level of the toxic social discourse that we have in this country that divides us every day. Can we talk in a thoughtful
I
way
think we do.
that could appeal to the most progressive person and the most conservative person and maybe give them a reason to come together?
I think we do. I think we do just
Okay,
that.
then keep the characterization stuff out of it. That's what I'm saying. That's the stuff that keeps us fighting and dividing and elevating and getting angry is because we
Let's
don't agree with
let's
those
continue this
character
conversation,
things.
guys. We got to continue. We're gonna keep going. We
Okay,
got to let's do this. Just come back.
you close it up,
Don't
coach.
be too butthurt. Come back.
Not
It's
butthurt.
okay. Auntie Christy Noble
Not
survived
butthurt.
this interview.
I'm
It's
not
okay.
butthurt. Let's
Okay,
just keep.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to Political No Brainer, the podcast where we move past winner takes all politics and into real conversations. I love this show. I think it's been great. I appreciate everybody. And as well as we all know, I'm going to be texting everybody and hoping everybody joins us again because there's a lot of value in what we do, and that value will be seen over time.
I agree. I agree. Thank you so much, Coach.
Thanks, guys. Thank you,
Thank you,
Charlie.
Charlie.
Thank you,
Thank
Beth.
you, Beth.
Bye, guys. Good weekend.
Bye. Thanks. Talk to you soon. Like, share, subscribe, comment.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.